Okay, testing. Looks like we're good to go. I'm live. Hello. Now let me adjust a couple things before we get started. Looks like there's not too many people here live, but that's okay. This video is also available after the fact online, as you all know. I'm sure many or most people are watching there. Well, hey. My goal today is to kind of expand on what we did last time. The last video that I did, I kind of went over basics and fundamentals, and we looked at basic 1, 2, 3, Pinon 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, Pinon 1, 2, 3, 4, or rather Pinon 1, 2, and 3. We didn't look at the 4, 5, or Basai yet, the red belt forms, and that's kind of the plan for today. Before I do that, though, I want to get conceptual about what it means to be a red belt 2. And before I get into any Taekwondo stuff, though, there is a note that I want to make first and that I have to make first. And it's that in my personal training at home, I will admit, I spent a lot of time on Netflix, a lot of time relaxing, which is fine. You know, many of us anyway are out of work or in isolation, quarantine, whatever it is. And during that time, we kind of have two options. I always like to describe progress as riding a unicycle up a mountain, and stay with me. This makes sense, I promise. If you're riding a unicycle up a mountain, that's practice, right? And you're pedaling and you're leaning forward and you're going up the hill. But the moment you stop pedaling, you're on a unicycle on a hill. You don't just get to sit in the same spot. You roll backwards is the downside. With extended periods where you can't practice the way that you normally do, what happens is you have to stop pedaling, you think, and then you roll backwards down the hill and you lose flexibility, you lose practice. You don't have to lose that flexibility or practice, though. We're putting out these resources for that reason. Or, for example, at home, set aside a time. For me, it's the first thing in the morning. I get up, I ride my exercise bike, I do my little workout in the morning, my push-up routine, whatever it is. Morning yoga, stay flexible in the hips, because I know, give myself 2-3 weeks off and I'm not going to be able to kick above my head anymore. It's an exaggeration, but keep that in mind. Our goal over this break should be to not even just maintain, but to improve, right? We're the unicycle, we're riding continually up the hill. My goal is come back more flexible than I was before. I have a friend of mine, a dancer up in Pittsburgh somewhere, and she's too flexible and needs to stabilize. And her goal is, I'm going to do so-and-so exercises every day and improve that way. I love that idea where we take something that is a negative, maybe, and turn it into something constructive by using our time wisely. So tune in for the streams. If you can't, no worries. Watch the videos later. Do your at-home practice and do it consciously with something in mind. Hey, Michelle. And do it with that in mind. Okay. So before I jump into the red belt forms, and like I said, I'll repeat it for those of you who just jumped on. My last video was basic 1, 2, 3, and Pinon 1, 2, and 3, all the forms underneath red belt. My goal today is to go over Pinon 4, Pinon 5, and Basai, the forms that at this school anyway, we do as our 3 levels of red belt forms. That doesn't mean if you are not at this level that you can't stay and watch, because a lot of concepts you'll be able to internalize anyway, the way you move, what it means to be intense, which is a word that we're going to look at in a minute. And even just kind of watching this idea, I think will be useful for anybody and everybody, regardless of rank, regardless of experience, because the martial arts concepts are universal. And I mentioned last time that we use a form as a tool to practice, and this is something great you can do at home. We use a form as a tool to practice concepts. As a beginner, a white belt, the concept is, what is a stance? How do I do a front stance? How do I do a back stance? Whatever that means. As a green, purple, blue, we use the same form, maybe basic 1, maybe basic 3, maybe our green belt forms, to practice the concepts of rotation, of proper positioning, of looking where you're going. Well, all of that we will include, but since this is a video on the red belt forms specifically, the concepts that I want to focus on, the concept, I should say, is intensity. And for me, intensity is defined as visualization and intentionality, and we'll get to that. Okay. So starting with Pinon 4. I want to adjust this screen a little bit. I lower this. I want to adjust the screen a little bit. That way, when I stand back, you can see my feet and my whole body a little bit better, depending on the angle that I'm in. Good, 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 good. So, Pinon 4. I guess I need a hunch. Let's see, what's the best way to do this? I'm going to ignore the little box, actually. I'm going to tilt it up. I'm just going to stand a little closer and then move back when I need to do the stances. Pinon 4, the first red belt form, the form that we do for a third gut red. It starts in a back stance with a double move just like Pinon 2, but what I want to talk about for a second is how to use a back stance to generate power, which is something that is so tricky. It's something that's hard because we're used to front stances for power. We're used to pushing off of that back leg and throwing our body weight forward, hopefully not leaning our shoulders forward, right? But it's very easy to push forward aggressively. And maybe we don't want to use that word, but it's very easy to push forward with power, whatever that means for you. But in a back stance, it's tricky, or rather it's tricky to do it right without kind of throwing your hips forward, weight onto the front leg, or without throwing your arms forward into some other move that isn't what we're trying to do. A back stance, like we mentioned, is rotational power, not pushing power. It's not pushing forward off the back leg like a front stance. It's not pushing sideways into a deep position like a horse stance. A back stance is weight mostly on the back leg, mostly, and then rotating in a circle to get power, pow, on a rotational, pow, axis, pow. And that's true for Pinon 4, Pinon 2, anything, even with double, fancy, complicated hand moves. So as we go into these forms, red belt forms, black belt forms, anything that is complicated with the hand movements, please, 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 please stay deep and stable, right? And I'm gonna harp on that because it's one of the things that I like to see when people are doing their forms. Good, 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 good. Now the first two moves of Pinon 2 then are back stance, open hand, double chops, right? So in your back stance, we're mostly over the back leg. We're doing our inside chop just like Pinon 2. The middle block comes around the outside and the high block comes around here. But now, if I just kind of swing my hands in a circle without flexing and extending my elbows, what I'm doing is I'm trying to use my shoulder intensity, right? So when I do a regular chop, I don't keep my arm completely straight. What happens is there's a bending and extending of the elbow, see? Right? So it's not just moving the arm across, it's kind of in, out. And it happens to a degree that's natural for your body movement, right? But when you do it, it's not just straight around, but more in, out, right? And what's happening is you're getting in tight around the axis. When we talked about Pinon 3 in the other video, I talked a little about how it's very similar to dance when you're doing the spear hand, turn, hammer fist punch, because if you turn really wide without bringing your feet in close, it's very hard to spin fast and controlled. Instead, what we need to do is bring the feet in and then push out, and it allows us to control the direction of our power in this front stance. It allows us to add power to the twist without losing control of the twist. And that is true for this move too, right? Instead of keeping the arms out and having no control, the hands go in and out, in, almost like I'm double slapping myself across the face, in with the inhale, out with the exhale for a double chop. Now, what are the angles on these moves? Good question. Thank you for asking. The angles are functional. The angles are a chop or a block upwards and a chop or a block to the side. And I always say you have to do that with the knife edge of your hand. If you take your hand and notice the part that you don't want to hit with, this back part right here, it's all small bones and like little nerves and things like that. If you smack it against something when you're doing a back fist, you will notice it sucks. It hurts to get hit there. And we don't want to do that. We don't want to hit here. We don't want to hit on the inside of our forearms here. There's lots of veins. There's lots of tender parts of the body. We want to line up the body on the edge or on the harder side. In the case of the hand, the palm. In the case of the forearm, the back of the forearm, like when you're doing one of those kung fu blocks where you use the back side. Hello, hello, hello. Good. So for Pinon 4, in this move, we're using our back stance to rotate over the back leg. We're bringing our hands in and out for this double move, and we are keeping both arms on the knife edge. That means if from the side you see my palm, something's wrong, because that means the back of my hand is being used to strike. Instead of, wow, it's flat now, the knife edge of my hand striking, pow, the knife edge of my hand striking. Again, that little joke of looking through your hand as if it's a telescope, and then bang, flattening it straight out without rotating, and now you're at a more acceptable angle. Making sure your hand isn't right above your head, but the forearm, pow, double block. Good. Now, as I do this first movement, how do I get power? Because now we know the structure, right? It's the weight on the back leg, it's this position, it's coming in and out, right? And here's the danger for the red belt forms. And I'll say this once this time, and then when we get to all the other moves, hopefully it speaks for itself again. The danger is disconnecting the moves, right? Doing just the stance and then the arms after it instead of making it lean into like a wave. I talked about this in the blue belt form. A wave needs to start on one section and continue all the way through with interconnected flow, right? And if it goes here, stops, here, stops, here, stops, it's clunky instead of smooth and consistent, right? And when I plant my stance, rotate through the hips move the core moves the shoulder moves the arms move the hands, right? Pow, it connects and has power, just like that. Good. I keep my weight on this back leg for the first move, and then I skip them together for the other move, on the other side. And the trick here, just like in Pinon 3, where I want to stay here on this side, then step in here, pow, pow, stay here on the back leg. I'm doing the same concept, except I'm skipping so that I stay on the back leg. So when I do the first move for Pinon 4, I look, my eyes are involved, and this is part of visualization in a minute. I rotate, pow for power, and then this is key. This is key. Don't skip and fall with your upper torso and your weight because we're out of balance. Now I'm in a kind of heavy on the front leg back stance, which we don't want. We want to be here on the back leg, at least 60-40, right? And so to make that transition happen smooth, what I need to do is keep my weight back, hold it back, because I don't want to use it in that direction. I don't want the weight to fall forward. When I do a front kick in Pinon 2, we talked about last time, right? It's not that I kick and then fall into this stance, because then I don't have any power to integrate for the punch. Instead, I kick, control it, and then as I step down, at the same time, I punch, and that gives power to the punch and a better step, right? The same thing is true here. I control it and land together. Pow, 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 all in good timing. But I control it back, right? And instead of like the kick, landing, pow, here, I control it, twist. You see how I'm still on the back leg, not leaning forward, hopefully. Up, high block, middle block. I'm where I need to be in a good stance, heels in a line, trunk straight, body forward, all the things that we know, but I've kept my power rotational. Good. This is going to be a big concept when it comes to getting power in our moves, in terms of the red belt forms, in a back stance, right? Because it's not a huge deal or a huge problem in the front stances, or even maybe the horse stances, but in our back stances, it's dangerous because a lot of the power comes from the upper body if we're not careful, instead of from the core and the legs, right? It's very easy to go and throw our arms out, pow, and try to make it look very strong with a snap, a whiplash that starts from my chest, pow, instead of a whiplash that starts from my stance and my core, right? That's a key difference. It's not stepping, throwing from my arms, pow, like some people do. I get in the power here. It's keeping the stance here, rotating this way, turning this rotation, pow, into power from the ground. It's stance power just like basic 3, where you twist from here and connect it here. It's the same kind of ground power in Pinon 4. Good, 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 good. Now, for the next movement of Pinon 4, after the double block, right? Because we start 1, pow, look the other way, control the power back, 2, Now we look where we're going. This is going to be key for all the red belt forms, looking first. Just like we skipped, we bring it again, the feet together, and we push, pow, with the back leg forward. Let me show you that from the side, right? What I mean by the push. So if I'm facing this way to start the form, and I do 1, the block, 2, the block this way, now I'm skipping this way. My front foot comes back, and from here, I'm not just gonna up and plop down into this move because there's the wasted potential of a front stance. Instead, it's pushing with the back leg. Not too much, just enough, but the back leg has a job. To be a front stance, it's not just ending in a position that looks like a front stance. It's pushing forward into mechanically a front stance that works in motion. Stances aren't static. This is the end position of a horse stance, but at this point, it's finished, right? You can do stuff from here. It's a horse stance. We call it a horse stance. Beautiful. This is a front stance, right? But I could have stepped here like this, which is something maybe different, right? Unless I'm really pushing off of this or even stepping back with embracing, but especially using the back leg, putting emphasis on that. Weight on the front leg, power from the back leg in a front stance. Now it's doing the job functionally in motion of a front stance. And that is key, 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 key. I'm gonna keep harping on stance power. That is key, key, key for power generation in your red belt form. So 1, pow, 2, pow is the middle block, weight on the back leg. Bring the feet together, pushing with the back leg, both hands in a fist, right hand on top, stick block, pow. Good. I push from this leg and I rotated my toes to keep up. Now from here, stick block, and I'll step forward into a back stance, supported outside block. Good, good. The danger for all these moves, I'll say it quick since I've harped on it so many times already, is that when you're stepping forward into a back stance like this one, it's very easy once again to, after my stick block, which is angled like this with the back of the hands down, right hand on top, in a good front stance. I'm not leaning forward in my back, right? Because now this is me going past my balance point. It's using the stance, and that means the hips come forward so the back stays tall. That's why the back stays tall. So we don't lose our balance, so that the power comes from where it's supposed to in the stance. Good, 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 good. Then from here, I don't want to overstep as I step forward into a back stance like we were saying, and end up here. I want to, once again, stay mostly on the back leg and rotate from there, right? Keeping the weight where it should be. Now, new move, warning, alert, supported outside block. It's just like basic 3 and just like Pion 2 mixed together, right? In Pion 2, we have our hands back, we put them forward. In basic 3, we have a closed hand outside block, but this hand comes all the way back, right? What we're doing is just we're kind of combining those things together. Remember how we hold the ball? What we're doing is we're keeping our hands facing each other for Pion 2, right? That's because we want the right hand to do its work here. But this hand is an outside block, so it's gonna face down. And it's facing down like I'm unbuckling a seatbelt so that it comes across and has this power for a basic 3 outside block. What's happening as it does that is the other hand is back. And the way I do this, and this kind of happens in full speed for anybody, is that it comes in first and from there, comes around to this position. The reason why I don't leave my hand straight out here and bring it straight across is the same reason I mentioned for every other move, especially the first one. We don't want to keep our arms straight and lose the rotational whiplash power. Bend and extend, pow. Bend and extend, pow. Pow, so that I get rotational power where this hand rotates as it comes in, and this hand rotates, wow, 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 as it comes out, right? So the whole form from the top, 1, stay on the back leg, double block. 2, look where I'm going, double block. 3, look first, bring the feet together, pushing from the back leg into a front stance stick block, and from here, 4, step forward, weight on the back leg, pow, supported supported back stance outside block. Where this hand, just like the overhead middle block, you can see the knuckles and the elbow from behind, flat like a table, angle here. Good, 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 good. Now, the next thing is the side kick ready. And so let's look at that. I'll start here. I look where I'm going, put my hands up into a high block, down block, right? This is key. This is one of those things that we talked about in P-Numb 2. But that is really important here because of the eyes. I look where I'm going. I keep looking where I'm going as I do a high block, down block, guarding my head with the angle. We talked about power coming from the high block because my elbow is closer to my head than my fist, and that gives me a better point of leverage, right? I'm gonna keep referencing stuff from the other video I did, by the way, because I went on for 2 hours with detailed explanations about a lot of the basic stuff that you see from blue belt forms on down. And I kind of want to like not rush past it, but I don't want to say everything all over again because I went into such detail over there that I feel it's a little redundant when there are other concepts that I want to mention here. So if I keep referencing back to something, hopefully you have already seen, or we'll go back and watch the other one from basic 1 on up to blue belt forms. That way when I just say, like P-Numb 2, the side kick ready, either you've already seen that or you've done a side kick ready enough that you can pick up when I kind of rush through these concepts all over again. Yeah. So I do my side kick ready with an actual high block that comes from across and up, an actual down block that comes from the shoulder and across, both with full rotation, right? Side kick position, heel forward, toes pulled back. I bring it all the way around. Now, here's where control and balance comes into play. I'm looking where I'm going, just like we talked about before. I point the knee away so that my heel is forward and stomp the side kick, right? And now if I fall here, I've lost control of my power. So I cannot turn, kick, and curl up. What a waste. What a wasted potential. Instead, I turn, kick, control. And then I use the back leg to push into a front stance, right? That's something that I've been harping on, the stance power, but it is key in going from a good form to a great form. Is it fine to go kick, land in a front stance? It looks fine to somebody who doesn't know the difference, but to somebody who understands what a front stance is, we understand that the whole position was wasted by landing here without ever pushing off of the back leg, right? The whole point of the front stance is it lunges your body forward in a straight line. And if I go straight from here, side kick, land, and then twist the back foot after the fact for some reason, now I've lost the whole point. And there's something that looks like a front stance, but maybe doesn't act like a front stance. And I would argue functionally isn't a front stance, even though it looks like one, right? So think about it doing the job. I side kick ready, high block, down block, at my elbow, 90 degrees, and not too far in, not too far away. And the back hand is gonna come in this case, my right hand, is gonna push with the front stance and land in a forward elbow strike, right? I like to do it at an upward angle because I like to go for the jaw. I don't like to elbow strike to the shoulder. That's just me. I was talking a little bit before about in P-Numb 3. I mentioned how when I do the elbow strikes down the middle, I don't like to crescent kick, elbow strike straight, because for me, I feel like, what am I doing here? If it is some other move and not an elbow strike, fine. I grab somebody and hold you in the head. This angle is appropriate. Before an elbow strike, to me, that doesn't make sense. I like to go to the jaw or to the head, like the turnaround hammer fist. I like to kick, elbow strike to the jaw or to the head or something like that, because that makes more sense to me. And when I do an elbow strike in any form, I kind of like to do the same thing. So I side kick ready, turn the knee, stomp, control, elbow strike at an angle that I find to make more sense. It's like I'm holding somebody's head and elbow striking instead of in the chest. If you wanted to go to the body, in theory, you could do that too, and both would be acceptable. I do the head, and that's my reason why. And then the feet come together into a horse stance. What I mean by this is that if I'm standing in a good front stance, my feet are about shoulder width apart, and there's this line right in the middle. When I turn into a horse stance, there's two options, or I'm in a bad horse stance. Option A is one foot moves back. Option B is another foot moves forward. But wait a second, there is an option C, splitting the difference, where I bring them both into center line, and now I'm in a good horse stance. Yeah. Splitting the difference for that horse stance sets me up to be right where I need to be to keep the form online. So that's the way it's done in this form. You could go forward, you could go back. The correct move in this form, as we teach it at this school, is after the psychic ready, chamber, kick, full shoulder width apart front stance, elbow strike, on target, whatever that means to you, out. From there, the feet come in together. And remember, don't tuck the knees in. The knees need to be directly over the feet in a horse stance, right? If you point your finger to your knees, go down to the floor, your feet should be there. If they're not, your stance is probably too wide or it's not bent enough. It's either too wide because now your feet are so wide your knees can't even reach that far, or it's narrow, but then you're hardly bending your knees. You need to bend more. One of the two, maybe a little bit of both. Keep the horse stance stable, keep the ribs in, belly button towards the spine, back tall, all that good stuff, right? Kick, pow, front stance, pow, and land in one of those good horse stances, ready, and be prepared to look to the other side. Good. To take the form from the beginning, look where I'm going, double block, pulling across, in and out, motion, back straight. I don't jump over there. I skip to the middle and rotate for the next double block. I come to the middle, push forward into the stick block with my back nice and straight, right? And stay on the back leg, go supported outside block. I didn't come too far forward. I stay here, twisted from here, and now I'm forward in move number 4 with the back stance outside block. I go to the left, side kick ready with a full high block, a full down block. They cross, they go through the full motion. The down block crosses the face, the high block crosses the body. They both do it at the same time and extend. Pop. They will come around at the same time and lock. We talked about this position before. Toes are back, etc. Looking where I'm going, and I 1, chamber, 2, kick, control as I target so that I can push with the leg for the elbow strike. Power, pow, low body, pow, head, and control. Look where I'm going, and as I repeat the same thing on the other side, there's a general rule of thumb for how to do a side kick ready. If you slide your feet together, you do the hands, but you don't stick the foot out. So as you know, or as you're finding out right now, in Pion 4, you do the side kick ready on this side, the first side, with the foot up, chamber in a check side kick position. I bring it around, kick, elbow, horse stance. As I slide for the next one, the feet come together, but my leg doesn't stick out and hold. It goes straight from here to the knee. Turn, kick, and full front stance, elbow strike on the other side. Where's my target? Right now I'm going to the more like the solar plexus, right? To the head, wherever you're going, know where you're going. Chamber, cross block, right? What is that block? We know that it's a high block, we know that it's an inside block, hopefully, but if we don't know how to do it or where the power comes from, I would argue that maybe you do. We know how to do a high block from basic 2. You cross the body and extend pow in a high block. In this case, open and high block, which we did for the first move of this form, right? Pow. And then instead of this going to the outside, we're going the inside. We're crossing the body. And that's part of the reason why it's called a cross block. But also, when I say crossing the body, I mean crossing the center line. We talked about this for Pion 3. When I do an outside block and I do it facing forward, I don't stop in front of my nose. That's halfway through the block. I have to cross. That way, whatever I'm blocking gets knocked away. A punch is on the center line. I don't go here. I go pop here and knock it away, so I'm safe. Same thing on the other side. I chamber for this inside block or inside chop, and I don't stop here before it's done. Pop, I cross and look, my eyes are looking straight in front past the block. That's the angle that it should be. That's why I'm showing you from the front. So from here, kick, front stance, elbow strike, pushing off that back leg, chamber this side past your ear, and chamber this side down like a high block, right? And from there, they both rotate. Now this back hand, like any other down block, is palm up. And this top hand, like any other inside block, is knuckles against the ear, right? From there, they rotate. The stance is actually 45 degrees. It's one of those weird ones. Where from here, the elbow strike, you don't step straight this way, forward. You step and turn into a front stance, like turudora. And when you do, you're off angle. So I was going completely straight this way in a front stance. I use this leg, the right leg, and I don't just twist and be in a what? What kind of stance is this? It looks like a front stance, but I didn't push off of the back leg. It was a plain rotation. Instead, from here, the weight from this leg pushes me into a 45-degree front stance, but the hand moves and the upper torso stays straight. It's a weird one. It's interesting, right? So from here, pop, I push with this back leg, do this chamber, stance goes this way, blocks come here, and be cautious of leaning forward into it, right? So pop, all the way across, pop, forward, looking where I'm going. Good, good, good. I'm in this cross front stance. It's 45 degrees that way, but the body and torso are forward, crosses, high block, kick, cross stance, T block. Yeah. So from this 45-degree front stance, facing forward with my chop, high block, I control my hands or I leave them here, but they're under control. Front kick, foot forward, flex back, toes flex back, foot bent forward, and then I jump, right, into a cross stance. And in a cross stance, the front foot is slight 45-degree angle. The back toes aren't too far away, kind of close, so that the knees are together, and the back heel is off the ground. Body still going kind of forward, kind of 45, right? A cross stance shouldn't be too leaned out of the way. It's another one of those rotating stances where you're in a ready chambered position. You're set up to do something else. You see cross stances happen a lot when you're stepping through or when you're stepping through. And what you're doing is you're setting up one leg to be a push into like a front stance or something else, right? So in Versailles, in the black belt form that we'll get to later, you cross stance and the front leg is set to push pop that way. That's why it's in front, that's why it's ready. The same as in Pion 5, I jump into a cross stance. Now the back leg in this case is set to push. Doesn't matter which leg, but the point is that you're setting yourself up in a rotated position to like a slingshot, spin, 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 project forward. And the same is true for this cross stance right here. How I kick front stance T block, which we talked about, the back fist uppercut, or whatever variation you know. And now the front leg has me set up to turn around 45 degrees and push. And that all happens in one motion, right? So, pop, I kick forward in a straight line, jump after the kick into a cross stance with the weight predominantly on the right leg. Back toes up, back fist uppercut for my T block. It looks like a T, but it's not actually touching, right? And then keeping the hands back, I push off the back leg into a front stance, into a collar grab. And we know what the front stance is. It's going 45 degrees that way, pushing with the back leg. But a collar grab is actually exactly what it sounds like. You're grabbing somebody's collar and yanking them back. And there's two key kind of parts to this. One is the strike, the double palm strike. And the second is the grab pullback. Both need to happen. Both happen under control. It's kind of a timing thing. I don't recommend practicing on another person, or you may hurt their neck, right? But you can kind of visualize and practice in your head so that you're stepping into this, turning with your body, right? Both hands are here. Palm, grabbing, pulling back. Happen, pop. And I like to integrate the double palm strikes with my front stance step instead of the pullback. What I mean by that, what I mean by that is if I did the double palm strike pullback really fast, what might happen is I'm pulling back as I step and finish going forward into the front stance, which doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me. Instead, I like to think That's the move. A front stance, double palm strike. And from there, lightning fast, and yanking back right out. So the move is coming to a close after the double palm strike. Pow, right to like the collarbones, the pecs, the chest. I'm grabbing something, right? That's the purpose of this. Good. So timing key there. All right. Double palm strike, grab, front kick with the back leg, and I kick with the right leg, so the right hand punches first. 1, 2, right to the nose, on line, right where I'm going, right? From here, notice how the first punch ended with the body movement from the kick, right? Just like when I did this move, and I didn't plop, then do the hands. They land together, they land together, it lands together at the same time, just like pin on 2. Block, outside block, kick, wait, land, and punch at the same time. The same is true here. It happens with a breath, it happens with an exhale. I palm with the foot, right? You don't have to stomp, I'm doing that for emphasis. But I palm with the front stance completion, grab, kick, control my balance as I chamber. And then this left leg isn't just gonna plop me down into a front stance. It's gonna actively push me into a front stance. That way I'm doing the job that a front stance does. Punch, punch. Good, but I got here because the leg did its job. It's gonna do its job again as I pull back, and the left leg actively actually pushes me 90 degrees from 45 to 45 in this direction to the other corner, as at the same time, pow, palm strike left. Kick with the left now, land with the left punch, other hand punch. So it's 2 punches, right? Good. Let's fly through the form up to that point. 1, stay on the back leg, double block. 2, stay on the back leg as you rotate. 3, bring the foot in, push with the back leg into the cross stance, right? From here, stay on the back leg into the supported outside block. Good. From here, I look where I'm going, actual high block, actual down block, bring it around together. Full side kick where I chamber the knee first. 1, stomp, control, and look how with the control, I'm back to here, my hand is out, I backhand elbow strike to target, pow, and split the difference. Look the other way because my eyes were involved. Slide together for the side kick ready. Not picking this foot up this time, putting it straight to here as the hands come around. Chamber, kick, chamber. You see how I'm ready? How this left leg is going to push me into a front stance. Elbow strike and a nice shoulder width apart front stance. Chamber, double chop. Stance 45 degrees, upper torso, striking forward. It looks like I'm blocking 45 degrees with the hand. What I'm doing is I'm just making sure that I cross my hip, right? With the inside block. Front kick straight. Front kick straight, jump straight. Land in one of these cross stances with the T-block, back fist uppercut. Front leg pushes me into a collar grab. I kick, time it, exhale, high punch, high punch. Left leg does the work again as it pushes me. I kick, control the balance, punch, punch. And from here, again, I need to make sure that I do not overstep into a back stance from this front stance, right? I'm doing punch, punch, and the next move is to go into a back stance here. If I'm not careful, what I'll do is I'll go punch, punch, and either just twist and ignore the fact that there's a whole new stance happening, or worse, come in and go all the way out into a very front leg heavy back stance, right? I don't know if that's worse. I don't like it. So from here, punch, punch, I come in onto the back leg. I'm resetting my balance to switch stances because I'm in a front stance, right? And I don't just kind of go straight over here because now I'm in a front stance. I'm 45 degrees this way. And then I need to go this way. Let me show it to the front. That way we get a sense of what's happening. I'm this way to the corner, and I'm going to come this way. But I'm not switching front stance to front stance. I'm switching front stance to back stance. So what needs to happen is, instead of going straight across, I shift my weight backwards. And this is the first time we see this concept that is pivotal in P 5 and pivotal in some of the black belt forms where I am doing kind of a spear hand pull-out cross. Those of us who know the red belt forms intimately recognize the part that we do all the time in P 5, where you spear hand in a front stance, pull it across into a back stance, and the weight has to shift, right? We'll definitely talk about this concept more in P 5, but it exists here in P 4 too. After the punch, I'm shifting from a front stance across into a back stance. It's not as far as in like a P 5 or in like cardio or something like that, where you really shift, but it's happening, right? And so what I need to do is shift my upper weight back without pulling my feet back as well. Super tricky, but once you understand it, it's actually relatively simple. Here's what I mean by that. To get back into the basics for a moment, briefly to help understand the concept that I'm talking about. A stick is for reference. When I step into a front stance, and I'm just about the width of the square, which is nice, and this line is in the middle, my weight, my torso, the chunk of my body, is just ahead of this stick. The stick is kind of in the middle. My stance is kind of just around the square. The square is pretty even, yeah. And look, my torso is in front of the stick. When I switch into a back stance, my feet go in a straight line, the back foot bends, my torso goes over the back leg. Now the trunk of my body is behind the stick, right? And in a horse stance, the chunk of my body is right in the middle of the stick. That is super important for shifting from a same foot front stance to a same foot back stance. Because what's happening is two things. One, the front foot has to slide over to be in a straight line. And two, the upper body has to move back, so it's behind the line. And this is where the mistake happens. I don't actually need to move the front foot backwards that much. Maybe a little, depending on how long my front stance is, but not that much. What I don't need to do is go like this. And now my foot is almost to the middle where the stick is. Now I'm not doing a really wide back stance anymore. When I do P 5, for instance, let me set this down on the middle line. When I do P 5, for instance, I spear hand, grab, and my foot basically stays where it was, right? It was here with my toes kind of touching this blue line, and I moved across with my toes still touching the blue line, but my upper body moved back without the foot moving back as well. That's because what's happening is the weight is transferring to the back leg and rotating, right? People do this to switch from a front stance to a back stance instead. They go back and forward, but that's not a back stance. I'm switching from a front stance now to some kind of front stance, back stance hybrid where I'm pushing forward for some reason. Not necessary. Instead, from this front stance, I need to now go from a pushing stance to a back leg rotating stance, right? And so from here, the weight is coming this way onto the back leg, the front foot stays where it was, but my weight shifts back as I twist, right? This is really in the weeds. This is advanced stuff, but it's also really fundamental. This is about what a back stance actually is. And when you treat a back stance like a front stance, you're missing the point of the stance and the form and the move, right? So if I'm here, pow, pow, doing the last couple moves of P 4, pow, pow, and I come back and step forward into a back stance, that's fine as long as I don't shift my weight too far forward onto the front leg, right? Let me show you at this angle so I can show what I mean. If I'm here, 45 degrees, and I go back and stay, that's fine. And I'll admit, I do that sometimes too. But what I think is maybe better, and it sets us up for P 5 and for choreo, is punch, punch, chamber, shift the weight back, and don't go forward at all. It's actually the same thing. It's just kind of skipping a step to where here, I'm coming back, hanging out for a second, and then bring the foot out again, where the foot is coming in and out, but the weight stays back. Whereas the second one that I showed is that the foot just moves straight across, but the weight does come back and stay back just the same, right? The only difference between this And this should be that the front foot either comes in and makes a V or moves across. What should not happen in either situation is that I move the weight forward into like a front stance with a bad back foot, or that I come in and push forward into a not good back stance. I mean, I don't actually mind which one you do, and I'm not even sure there's a correct answer. By that I mean they both are working functionally. The second one is maybe a little faster, maybe a little less clunky, but they're both fine. But what we need to do is make sure that we're making sure that it is a back stance, not a front stance, not transitioning like a front stance, not transitioning by pushing off the back leg like a front stance and going, but instead having the weight come in and rotate from the back leg. That is super key. Demo version 2 in slower motion with exaggerated hip twist? Absolutely. I can demo the second version, showing where the power is coming from, right? Both times and both ways, they're getting this exaggerated hip twist, where the first one, right, is that I'm coming in, and then you very clearly see the twist into the back stance, right? But for the second one, maybe it's harder to see, where I'm here and I just twist the same, but I twist as I come back onto this foot. And that's the one I'm calling version 2, by the way. That's the one that I prefer, just pulling it straight across, although I think both are acceptable. But I'm not coming in and pushing forward, right? Or I'm not pushing forward just straight across. Both times what I'm doing is from this front stance, 45 degrees, rotating the trunk in a circle, right? Rotating the upper torso in a small circle to get power. Yeah. I'm nodding the upper torso in power to get this rotational back stance power. Good. And this is true for the next couple set of back stances that I do down the line. So it's 1, I keep the power on the back leg, 2, right? So 1, I'm right here off of this. 2, the weight stays here, does not step forward into a, what is this even, right? It's not a back stance is what it is. Instead, I keep the weight on the back leg, rotate. Now in the back stance, I do it exaggerated, right? But whatever it is, the heels are in a straight line, the weights of the back and are rotated. Same thing for move number 3. Now, one of my favorite moves of the entire Pinon full form, this transition from a back stance to a front stance, which is the same as a transition from Pinon 2, where I go from this last middle block to this punch outside block in Pinon 2, right? When we talked about that, what that move is I'm in a back stance, 45 degrees in Pinon 2, right? The purple form. And what I do is I take this back leg, just the same concept as what we're talking about, right? And I don't necessarily bring it in and push into a front stance. I slide it across in a reverse punch by pushing with the back leg to change the direction, right? I go from a back stance to a front stance. It's literally the opposite of what we were just talking about. And from this rotational move from Pinon 2, now this back leg has the job of pushing, and it's gonna push me straight forward, right? For this reverse punch. The same is true here, except I'm not pushing as far. I'm in a straight line back stance, right forward, and all I'm gonna do is push forward into a shoulder width apart front stance. But now this is key, right? This time, it's not just about rotational power. It's about lunging forward power with the back leg. It's the opposite. And if I over-rotate, what I run the risk of doing is treating it like a step onto the front leg, and I go too wide, or I go too narrow, or I do all sorts of other things that aren't necessary. If I think about pushing my power forward in the direction that it's going, by that I mean I'm here on the back leg, look at how my torso and weight is back, and then I push forward into a front stance, and I know what a front stance is, my hips are wide, etc. Well, now I'm more likely to go in the direction that I'm supposed to, because I was actually pushing my stance forward in that direction. I was doing the job. We have a theme here, right? I was doing the job of what the fundamental stance is supposed to do, and it makes everything else better after that. Yeah. So Forward, I'm in this back stance. The foot does move to the side, shoulders apart, to make it in a front stance. But don't misunderstand me. It's not step, rotate the back foot, because now the back foot did nothing. It didn't push me, it didn't lunge me, it didn't shove me forward in what a front stance is and is supposed to do, right? Instead, the back stance, the back leg does the work of changing from a back stance into a front stance. And I head grab. When I do the head grab, I like to actually bring my hands around and grab a head. Some people like to go straight forward like a collar grab. I'm not the biggest fan of that because I feel like my palm striking the eyes and then grabbing the back of the head. I like to just come in and grab because I'm treating the motion like this. Pow, coming around, grabbing and going straight down. I'm not considering it forward, grab, yank. I'm considering, now it's not a huge around. I'm not going huge bear hug, bare hands. It's more like pow, pow, tight, pow, and extending. But it's just in my case, I'm not doing a double palm strike grab for this move, right? It's not the collar grab, kick, punch, punch. It's the head grab. And they are different, I think. We're not grabbing somebody's collar in the chest with a palm strike yank back. It's you reaching around and grabbing the head. I even have my fingers open as I grab the head and then close them as I do the knee strike. And open fingers, don't do it. I'm not even going to advocate that. I'm not even going to say that it's okay because I do it. You generally in forms don't want to have open fingers. I'm just like being dramatic and grabbing somebody's head. But reach around, grab, hook, maybe even monkey paw is probably more appropriate. And knee strike, pow. And my point is that instead of going forward, back, then strike, it's more in, down, without any rise, without any upward, right? I came around and I go straight from the top, down. It's not 1, 2, 3, as if we're doing a knee strike with a board or something where we hold it, chamber, and strike. You'd let go of somebody's head if you did that. You grab their head, you either release their head or yank it off the body, I don't know. Instead, I keep the hands right here where they need to be, and from there, go straight down, chamber, and then where I need to be. Good. So, back stance, double block, pushing with the back leg into the head grab. Both hands chamber from the same direction and coming around. That's another reason why it's not a huge big circle, right? They chamber, twisting from the same direction, and just pop out at the last minute around. Knee strike. Now I chamber, look where I'm going, and land with a back stance 180 degrees. This is one of the easier kinds of back stances to do correct because you're kind of falling onto your back leg. You don't want to fall, you want to be in control, and you want to twist and land with exaggerated balance, of course. But what I mean is when you're stepping backwards into a back stance, it's very easy to actually use the back stance correct with the weight on the back leg. The danger here isn't about this move. The danger here is about the next back stance, because I guarantee you to anybody watching, by comparison, they might look different if you don't do the follow-up back stance correct. What I mean by that is that I head grab, knee strike, land into a really good back stance here, and then the next back stance goes 45 degrees to the corner, and if I step really, let me show you straight so you can see. If I land really good here and then step very forward here, it's super obvious, right? That we're not using this rotational power, that we're just kind of kerplunking forward into a back stance. So be cautious about these last two, because it's a trap. It's not a trick or anything. It's designed to teach us something as usual. But if you're not careful and if you're not aware of the concept, it'll act like a trap and that it'll catch you off guard and you'll land in a not the best front stance or back stance you've ever seen. So I knee strike, land in a good back stance, and this next one goes 45 degrees. I'm going to go straight to show you. Keep the weight on the back leg and do a back stance from there. I do it at 45 degrees in the form of sun. Right leg comes back and follows. Good, 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 good. That's one of the forms that I wanted to get through today, and it only took almost an hour. Cool. But I talk a lot. But before I hit the second one, and hopefully Basai, I do want to now take a step back and we'll rush through this form one more time after we've applied these concepts of intensity, right? Because I did mention that, but the red belt form is all about intensity. And what that means to me is visualization and intentionality. And I need to briefly talk about what that actually means, right? I'm trying to stay in shape as we're on this break, and I ride the exercise bike every morning. I mentioned that in the beginning of the video, but some of you guys might not have been here. I have an air bike, right? And to kind of keep it inspiring for me, I have a fan in front of me, and I set it up in front of the TV, and I put on YouTube videos of like people riding through the Swiss mountains or whatever. And I'm riding my exercise bike in the morning. It's the one with like the hands going like that, and I'm going through like a virtual tour of mountains somewhere. It's awesome. But I noticed something interesting about my mind, because in the video, you can see the elevation, and sometimes they're riding the bike uphill, and sometimes they're riding the bike downhill, right? And I noticed, and even after I noticed this, it didn't change anything physiologically. I still fell for it. I noticed that while the video was riding uphill, I'd be more labored and tired. And when the video went downhill and is moving faster and it's much easier, you see them zooming downhill around the curves and the roads, I was going very fast. I was getting a full cardio. On a video, I did not change the resistance on the bike. It was the same the entire time. I did not make it any easier or harder. In fact, it started uphill and ended downhill. But as it was going downhill, and it would go up and down, I noticed every time it was going up, I'd feel tired. I'd pedal slower. Every time that it would go downhill, I'd be pumping it out. And when I became aware of this, it didn't even change it. I was like, oh, it's going uphill now, so I guess I'm gonna be more tired. But no, I can just speed faster. But even as I kept going fast, going uphill, watching the screen go uphill, I was now feeling more tired. And even when it went downhill, I even like took my hands off and let my legs only do the work to see. And I was just pumping like nothing. Because my mind was convinced that I was going downhill. Even though I was aware that it was all a trick and it wasn't real, the mind can convince you if you let yourself believe it, right? As Master Jeff always says, martial arts is 90% mental and the other 10% is also mental. Well, visualization is the first one of those things that I was talking about how to do your forms and make them intense. That doesn't necessarily mean strong or powerful, by the way. It doesn't mean fast. It means what it means. What it means is authentic, right? What it means is I'm visualizing, I'm picturing in my mind what the attack is doing, right? So maybe this first move is blocking something, sure. And I have a picture in my mind of what the attack is, and I have a picture in my mind of what it looks like when I do it. And that's half of the puzzle, this visualization, this imagination that I'm using for functional training, right? And then intentionality is the other half that I talked about. I have that picture in my mind of what I want it to look like, and I act with the intention of making it look like that. That means if I don't think, and if I don't believe, let's use that word, if I don't believe that this block would actually block a full power strike, then I'm not going to do it that way. I have to act as I am intending to block a real strike. And then the move happens with that authenticity. It happens, in a way that's realistic, right? And that's what I'm looking for. I'm looking for the power, the strength, not to come from speed or from muscle, but from believable intention, from actually trying to do a move that works in real life. And it doesn't have to be super fast or strong. Maybe it is super fast and strong, but it's super fast and strong because it's trying to be authentic. Maybe it's slow and powerful. And it's slow and powerful because it's trying to do the job that it's trying to do, right? So as I'm doing this Pilon 4 then, that's why I'm looking where I'm going. Because in my mind's eye, I'm visualizing and can see the attack. And I keep looking where I'm going as I twist into the attack because, I love that word in forms, because. I'm turning that way, looking that way, twisting, because I'm trying to make the form. I have the intention of doing this move in a way that blocks what I visualize and see happen. That, to me, is my definition of red belt intensity. Not just that you're doing the form strong with muscle, not just that you're doing the form really fast and you're exhausted and you're going and breathing very loud, which, right? All these things need to happen because you're doing it authentically, because you're visualizing, because you have the intention of doing it in a realistic way. Good. That is what I mean by an intense red belt form. So let's do Pilon 4 one more time. Less talking, visualizing and thinking about what we're doing as we do it. And I'll talk through it one more time, but more so focusing on, the visualizing thing. So I see something coming. I rotate powerfully to double block. I don't want to step too close to this next person. I stay back and rotate because the back stance needs to do the job of a powerful strike. And if I step forward, now the arms and the torso doesn't have any power. It doesn't have the balance and control that I need for this block, I should say. Because now it's just my arm. I need to be powerful here. I step in, and I need this front stance to push me into a strong stick block. And then I step forward, pow, keep the weight on the back leg for the outside block. I come around, high block, down block. And I need this to actually be a functional, powerful side kick, and just pushing that out, it doesn't do the job. I don't believe for 1 second that this would actually push somebody back, that it would strike or break a board. I don't believe that. I believe that this, pow, would. And so that's the way I do it. I chamber or pulling my knee away. I stomp it. I don't believe that that would break anything, though. This is how I do the form, by imagining what it looks like as I inhale, exhale. A beautiful tool for this. I inhale, exhale, inhale, exhale, and I let that power come from my breath. I let that power come from doing each move authentically. Inhale, as I slide my feet together, pick the legs straight up, look where I'm going. Exhale, inhale, exhale. Good. Every move gets its own breath. 45-degree front stance. Cross chop forward. This one's a cross, right? Kick, cross stance with this leg now chambered, back fist uppercut for the palm strike, grab, yank back. Kick, control the weight, front stance, punch, punch. Use this left leg to front stance the other direction, palm, grab, kick, land with the punch. Now, the weight, I chamber and shift across into this back stance, right? From there, I keep the weight on the back leg, push into a front stance authentically, middle block, and 45-degree middle block, keep the weight on the back leg. And there's a strong key up on the T block and on the knee strike, but I should add. And those happen because I'm doing the form so powerfully that now the power happens authentically, right? We're on theme, we're on topic. Good, 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 good. Now, let's move on through Pinon 5. There's some moves in here that are similar, some moves here that are different. I'll focus on those and how to do them. Let's do a different method of looking at the form, and we'll just look at everything that's new, and then we'll tie it all together really quickly. So the first thing that's new, the back stance, outside block punch from Pinon 5, the next red belt form. I definitely need to rotate into a good back stance, outside block. I need to keep the weight on the back leg for that reason. I need to do this rotational power and do it just like basic 3, including having this hand all the way back, right? From here, this hand comes down to the hip. This hand comes straight across and punches. I was joking in the last video about how once I did this form and accidentally punched myself across the face. I was focusing more on arm power than it was on rotational power. And that problem can happen. What I did was after this good back stance, after this big chamber, my hand basically came across like this. I was focused more on bringing them around together and landing in this position. I was focused more on the shape and getting there in what looked like strong, instead of actually thinking about what a powerful punch would be. And a powerful punch comes straight from the hips, rotates, and extends in a straight line. That's the more powerful punch. But if you go too fast and think just about the shape, you might do what I did and go 1, 2, and clock yourself across the jaw. I'm sure it was hilarious for anybody watching. It was less hilarious for me because I already got some TMJ. But whenever you do a form then, think about what the moves actually are. 1, it's back stance, outside block, chamber. And this chamber sets me up, pow, for this elbow strike, pow, pow, middle punch. Good, good. You see how I'm set up? You see how I'm still in the back leg? I didn't over-rotate my torso as I did the punch. Maybe a smidge, right? Enough to like get a little power, but I'm not turning my body actually away from my back stance. 1, it's a double move, Now, I'm looking where I'm going. 2 is that now I'm going to pick it up and change. So I look forward, bring the feet together, adjust the toes so they're in a parallel stance, both forward, and bring the hands over. As I do so, I shift from having this hand all the way back at the hip and this one punching to having them one on top of the other, to where this one isn't all the way back at the hips now. It's forward and stacked, right? That's because this is a ready position. This is chambered and set up for either a new move or a T-block or whatever we're going to do next. This is a chamber position, a ready position. This, with the hands all the way back at the hip and a punch, is the end position of a strike. They are different. If you didn't know, now we know. I have back stance, outside block, front back stance punch, and this hand is all the way at the hip or wherever you keep it, but it's not forward because this is just locked back in the elbow strike and this is extended fully in the punch. I look as I come around and bring it together, and now they're stacked. It's not far forward this time. It's thumbs up, right? The knuckles up, the hand here, one fist distance in between, feet together. And now I look, and here's the same concept we've been talking about, right? I don't step forward with my weight into this next back stance. No, pow, pow. From here, I keep the weight on this circular area and rotate into this back stance, outside block. And from there, punch, hand at the hip, middle punch extended. I look forward, bring the toes together as I step into a parallel stance. And now switch the hands. Now the hand is forward, not all the way at the hip, because they're stacked. There's a lot of confusion about how to do the head movements and looking while we're doing this. I think understanding what we're actually doing and blocking will help with that. So let me do it once, just without talking, and you can see the way I look, and we'll talk about what's actually happening, then we'll move on. So I see someone coming this way, maybe. That's what I'm looking at it. I see the attack from the left side, right? I do the move. Now, I'm gonna step and do a switch forward. So in my opinion, I don't step and keep looking this way. Because what I'm doing is I step up in a parallel stance forward and I do the transition forward. So as that's happening, that's when I look. I know I said I'd do it first and then talk after, but I can't help myself. Pow, pow, I look where I'm going, bring it together, shift. Now I'm gonna go that way. So before I step that way, I look that way. And then I rotate into this next move. Now I'm gonna do a switch and a stance this direction forward. So I look forward, step into a parallel forward stance, and shift. And that's kind of what I mean about the direction. I mean that the stance, I'm looking, following the stance line, right? So a back stance, in this back stance, I should say, is going this way, so I look this way. The parallel stance is going this way. So I look there before I get there, right? I don't do basic one and go step and look after. I know I'm gonna step into a front stance this way, so I look that way and do a front stance. And before I step that way, I look this way, and now I step into a front stance this way, if that makes sense. I look, then step. In the same way, I look this way, step into a back stance this way, look this way, step into a parallel stance this way. Look this way, step into a back stance this way, look this way, step into a parallel stance this way. Let me show it one more time. This time, I promise, my mouth is closed. Right, so I'm looking in the direction of the stance that's coming next, in general. Good. From there, we talked about T-blocks, we talked about a stick block, right? But we didn't talk about the full stick, pull out, punch, which is the new part of this form. So what's happening is I'm gonna start from this stick block position, which is a reverse stick block, right? Because my left foot is forward, but my right hand is on top. The same as in Pinon 4, or reverse stick block, left foot, right hand on top. And from here though, instead of moving into a follow-up move, and I talk about staying with legs bent after first moves as opposed to standing tall, like the up and down, the head bobbing thing. If that's what we're talking about, absolutely. It's actually really prevalent in this and most of the 3 forms, Pinon 3, Basic 3, a little bit Pinon 4 too. Any of the forms, especially the ones that rely a lot on back stances, it exists in front stance forms too, but Definitely these low back stance forms, it's very easy to see. The way I do Pilon 5, for instance, let's start there, is that I like to step into this low back stance, right? Where now my knees are bent, so my head is at this level. And if I step up into a parallel stance, now my head is up. And I don't know if I was doing that on the video 10 seconds ago, no sé, but what I like to think that I do, and what I do even sometimes when I'm doing Pilon 3, is that when I step into a parallel stance, I keep my knees bent roughly so that I'm at the same height, right? So if I'm doing Pilon 3, pow, I try to step here. My knees are bent, see? And from there, I pow, pow, do the move, keep my head at the same level, pow, pow. If I'm doing basic 3, it's the same thing. I step into a back stance, and from here, I don't come up and down into a front stance, I stay low. But why do I stay low? Excellent question, fantastic question. Honestly, super fundamental question. I don't know why and how I haven't talked about it yet. Thank you, Master Michelle. I stay low because of the direction. I mean, I've talked about it already in terms of talking about direction of stances. I just haven't been specific about why we stay low. It's kind of one of the reasons why we stay low. If I'm going to do a front stance, I'm going to do several front stances, right? And I'm going to move forward. What happens is if I step up, now my legs are straight, and then I step down with my leg bent again, and my head moves up high and down low. Some of the power from this stance isn't now me moving forward and pushing with the back leg. I'm not getting a lot of forward push. I'm getting a lot of down stomp. I'm getting a lot of energy going this way as I lower myself into this position. Sometimes it's useful, like when I'm doing a horse stance-ish. But usually, especially in Taekwondo, or especially in WT Taekwondo, I should say, our goal isn't to get up-down energy. Our goal is to get rotational energy from the stance. In this case, from the back leg of a front stance or from the rotation of a back stance. And to do that, if I'm stepping up and down, I run the risk of stopping my power here instead of letting it express in the direction it's trying to express. For example, if I do Pilon 3, if I do this move and then I come up into this transition with my knees completely straight, now when I step this way, I'm going to bend down into the back stance instead of staying low and just rotating more in a circle, if that makes sense. I'm placing the emphasis on staying low and rotating and not on coming up and down. It's like splitting the energy. It's like splitting some into a rotation and some into a downward stomp when we don't want the downward stomp. We want to stay low, pow, pow, stay bent, stay low, and transfer the power into the rotation. And if I'm coming up and then stepping, bam, down into this front stance, and maybe even heard the stomp. Bam, now I stomp heavy on this front foot, and that is, one, it's a lot of impact for my core joints. I had surgery on this knee. We need to protect it. But two, it's stopping the power that's going in this direction. I need it to be pow, pow, going forward. And there was no stomp there. There doesn't need to be a stomp there because the power is moving in line. The foot is staying bent, but I'm not going so far that I slide off of the back foot, right? It's not heavy stomp and slide or anything like that. It's controlled projection from the direction that I'm going. Back leg push, back leg rotation. Coming up and down makes the power stomp down. Good, good, good. So from here, pow, pow, wow. I step forward, pushing with the back leg into a front stance, stick block, and then I step forward, T-block, I should say. And then I step forward with the left leg, and here we are talking about the stick, pull out, punch. And there's a step for the punch in this form. But what is this stick, pull out, punch, right? It could be anything. It could be that I'm blocking a low kick, and a high chop. It could be that somebody actually has a stick, and they stick block low and high, like they're attacking to my legs, pow, attacking to my head, pow. Doesn't matter what it is. It could be that they're doing a punch, a low punch and a high punch. They do a low punch towards my solar plexus and I knock it down. They do a high punch towards my nose and I knock it up. Doesn't matter. What matters is that I'm authentically then grabbing whatever it is with the bottom hand, chambering with the top hand, and stepping for the punch. Now, what do I mean by that? Because what is a stick pull-out punch, right? It's some kind of fancy, I do it with my hands really fast so nobody has to see, right? No. What it is after I block high with the hands open, right? The hands are closed, right hand on top, and they cross and block. The hands are open. As they come up, they cross and block. And then this hand is on the bottom, right? What I'm doing is, what I'm doing here is I'm reaching the bottom hand across and grabbing, pulling the top hand back for a chamber. And as I step, it's just like any other punch. It's like when I'm doing basic one, when I step and punch, and the front hand pulls and the back hand punches, like our horse hand punches, pull and punch, pull and punch, pull and punch, pull and punch. That's what's happening. But what I'm pulling is what I grab, whether it's the stick, whether it's a chop, whether it's a punch to the nose. Whatever it is, I stick, grab with the bottom hand, pull back and punch. There is a flashy way that this is done that is not functional. The way that people sometimes do this form when they're doing it for show, and a form is for show, so this is fine and acceptable, is that they stick, and then they rotate the hands like this. I know that looks like crazy, right? Watch, this hand's on the bottom, this hand's on the top, and they switch places, see? They switch places, and then the bottom one switch places and grabs on top. The danger is, of course, that if you're actually blocking something and then you try to switch places like that, whatever's blocking you is going to get in the way of the fancy rotation. So when something's blocking you for real, what you have to do is just grab with the bottom hand, and it works just fine. And that's the way that the move is from a functional point of view. That's the way I do it. But a lot of people, and this is fine, stick, rotate all the way around and punch. And that's fine too. What I do, because I like to keep things functional, I like to know why I do it and do it in a way that's going to be efficient and precise, is I go stick, bottom hand grabs, top hand chambers. This happens at the same time. And then I step forward and middle punch, right? Body straight, elbow back, etc. But that's what's happening with the stick pull out punch. This is the first time we see that move, right? So stick, pull out, punch. Good. From here, I'm going to turn and do an inside crescent kick. We talked about inside crescent kicks in the other video for Pinon 3, but I'll just hit the cliff notes. We're not using our hip flexor. We're not swinging our whole leg in. We're using big muscles, the big quad, the big hamstring for our crescent kick. And we're extending like a front kick, kind of rotating-ish, and then using our big hamstring to flex in. Bam! The knee is actually bending as I strike, right? Ha! Good. So what's happening in the form is I go stick, pull out, punch, and I key out, and then I turn. And I'm not turning into a fancy stance, I'm turning so that I can set myself up to, with the back leg, do a crescent kick, right? So I'm here in the punch, I turn, set myself up, I place a target right in front of me. I like to do my nose height, right in front of my nose, as if I'm gonna kick somebody my own height, right in the jaw. And now, it's okay if you can't kick that high. What you do is, you lower your target to a place that you can kick. But what you have to do is set the target up in the correct location first. What you can't do then is start head height and then lower it here to kick us through the form. That just means that you set yourself up for failure from the beginning. We don't need to do that. No, instead, I turn, target, and I set it up where I'm going to be, and then wherever I set it, that's where it lives, that's where it stays. I don't step and turn it and rotate it. It's stuck at that point in space, in 3 dimensions, right? It stays in this point, I kick it, all right, elbow strike. You see I'm doing this elbow strike at the jaw, not to the shoulder, all right? So, I punch, turn, crescent, elbow strike. Good point. It's not an elbow strike, it's a down block, right? So from here, from the form, we actually don't need to talk too much about a horse stance down block, but I'm going to do it anyway because remember, I've been talked about this point a lot in Pinon 4. I brought it up in Pinon 2. Yeah. I talk about set and forget it. When I talk about Pinon 2, and I brought up a concept, the concept was that when I kick, I want to control the balance and then land with the step, not after, right? The same thing was true for the collar grab, kick, punch, punch in Pinon 4. And this is easy to grasp for a lot of people for the front stances that we're mostly doing it in, or even sometimes for the cross stances when we're landing and doing a move in Pinon 4. But for some reason, not for everybody, but for some people, it's trickier in a horse stance. But what we're doing here, right, is we're punching, we turn, crescent kick, and then when I land the elbow strike, or when I land the down block, which is what the next move is, pow, I crescent kick, I chamber, land the horse stance down block at the same time. And I do it with a good chamber, right? I don't just go like this. I turn the body and rotate it and twist it into a down block, yeah? So what this whole pattern looks like is from the punch, I turn with my hands under control, I crescent kick, and then I control the leg. I chamber for a down block, and I twist into a horse stance down block. I'm in a horse stance, see? From here, I look the other way as I keep the horse stance where it should be. And now I set my target, turn, kick, and do the elbow strike, right? The elbow strike and the down block are landing with the horse stance. Control is key here. It takes practice. Don't kick as high then. That's fine. But then control your balance so you land the down block at the same time. What I don't really want to see is here, kick, down block happening a second after the step, right? Because what that means is that I was out of control for the crescent kick and I fell into a horse stance. Fell. Not an exciting word, right? Instead, from this punch, I turn, kick right to that target area, chamber a nice, great down block, and from here, land in a horse stance, looking where I'm going into that down block. I chamber, keep the horse stance, right? I can adjust this front foot. After I do the target, it's a horse stance target. I can adjust it as I'm kicking. But then after I kick, and I set it and leave it here, after I kick, I land with the elbow strike. Good. That's key. Good. The next section is what is the next move? The supported back fist, which is what it is. And then the kokinage, the chamber, the guard. I ended the elbow strike this way, let's say. From here, the way that I was originally taught this move is that I treat the target hand from the elbow strike like the axle, like an axle on a wheel, something that is a straight line that something spins over. And then the back fist pivots over this axle. So you see my elbow is stuck here, and then the top hand rotates out, but this hand is staying right where it is. Yeah. From this elbow strike, I step into a cross stance. Remember cross stance, feet 45, back toes up, pop. I step into a cross stance. And as this hand finishes the back fist right to the center line, to the nose, the back hand closes, right? And a back fist target. Then I look the other direction as I change the move into a sayu, a kokinage, a extension, a breath throw, whatever you want to call it. What the move is, maybe you want to call it a pull out, a yank, a pull, a tear, like we do in some of the other forms. There's a lot of different interpretations of this move, but what's happening is I'm extending this way, as if I'm going to throw somebody, as if I'm reaching, as if I'm leaning on somebody with my shoulder and guarding. And we're keeping the second hand high instead of doing a groin block, like it's sometimes done in the other move. Almost as if I'm chambering for a open hand down block, except the palms are in this way, not this way, right? So, I elbow strike, pivot on the backhand, close, look the other way, open the hands and shift into a cat stance. This is the first time we see a cat stance, right? So, a cat stance is the exaggerated, maybe even the mother of a back stance, right? Because it's from a lot of old kung fu and Chinese martial arts, and probably predates a back stance, and that is not as low and bent to the ground. It's more alive and moving. some Southern style praying mantis, kung fu, right? In a cat stance, what you're doing then, and cat stance is one name for it because it looks like a cat, but I do think it actually probably originates in mantis kung fu, is that you're light on one leg and you could block, because your balance is completely set up on the back leg. The back foot is 45 degrees from whatever angle you're facing. So if I'm facing this way, the back toes aren't straight that way. They're 45 degrees that way. And my weight is entirely over this leg. The front foot is also kind of out 45, including with rotation. Now, as usual, as always, whatever direction my knee points, my toes also point. That's just good body health and anatomy tips, right? And then I pull my toes back and flex my foot like I'm doing a front snap kick. Most people don't know that. They point the toes like they're doing ballet toes, which maybe that's the image that we have in our head. Maybe that's what you see people do in a cat stance, right? But it's not super safe for your toes functionally, one, and two, it's not the position of the way the move is done. So back foot, 45 degrees, the knee is bent, front foot also 45 degrees with the hip rotation, right? In a front kick foot shape position. Is it the opposite direction? Oh, I see. He's mirroring, so he's copying me, and when I'm doing it straight, not really. If this is, so you're Lourdes, and Evan is your, yeah. So I know who you are. Evan is, what is he, an orange belt? And it's okay, because what's happening then is he's orange, green, whatever he is. He's practicing these forms. He doesn't need them yet, but he's getting the concepts. He's getting how to rotate and twist into the body and all of that kind of stuff. He doesn't need to know these forms for a while, especially this one. This is the second class red belt form. He's a good ways away from that. That doesn't mean don't practice it. What that means is the fact that he's practicing the concepts is better than that he's trying to actually do the form in sequence, because he doesn't need this form for a while. And when he does it in class, when he does the form in class, that will, we can sort of correct whether it's a left side or a right side. And he should know how to do both sides anyway, right? So the fact that he's practicing mirror image isn't a big deal, especially because these aren't forms that he's currently working on. And I'm not super worried about him like going from X testing and doing P-on 5 and getting confused. He's like a year or more away from even having to know P-on 5. This is extra credit. This is understanding the concepts and the motion for him. It's, yeah, you're right. Shut up. Got it. I get it. I talk too much. Good. So where in the world was I? I was in P-on 5. We had just did this move. We had talked about what a cat stance was. Perfect. And from here, I have the back foot 45 degrees, the front foot also 45, foot forward, toes back like a front kick. The hands are here. I'm actually going to jump now into a cross stance. And this is actually something that I never see from people do. And I understand because it's terrifying to do it this way. But remember that when we do a cross stance, what are the back toes like? The back toes are up, right? The back toes are up. The back toes are high. And when we do this next move in P-on 5, it's the jump. It's where you pick the feet up, and land in a cross stance. You may notice that my back toes are up, which is not something that a lot of people do. A lot of people want to land in a cross position. And I honestly probably think that that's fine and that's okay. I'm not a huge fan of stomping down on my heels in general. And I don't think that's the way the form is done, but that's super prevalent in this school for a lot of reasons. But in my opinion, a cross stance is a cross stance. Back toes should be up. So from here, I go from a cat stance. I push off of the left leg, the front leg. I jump, chamber my hands for a stick block, and I land first with the right foot. That should help us actually land in the correct cross stance when we do that. I kind of want to land with the feet together, but I kind of don't, right? It's not 1, 2, because now I didn't get a good jump, right? What I definitely want to do is pick the knees up and come down mostly together, but it is a staggered 1, 2. It's just that I'm not panicking and reaching down with my right leg first. I'm just letting them come down 1 and 2. But the reason why I'm landing with the right leg first is because that's the leg that I'm not just landing on my tippy toes with. So from here, I'm jumping, pop, and landing 1, 2, stick block. And let me show you facing this way. So I'm here, and I'll turn when I do the stick block, which is what I want you all to see. I jump, land, cross stance, stick block, And now, bam, the back foot goes down. The back heel goes down because I'm using it. We talked about a stick block being a cross stance, being a chamber for a front stance. The back leg pushes me into this next front stance, which is shoulder width apart. Let me show you this one. From my cat stance, which is 45-45. I jump, land in my cross stance, 1, 2, right? Plant, push into the front stance, T-block, back fist, uppercut to the nose, right? So it's okay that a lot of people don't jump and land. Honestly, I'm not even sure I want to tell a bunch of kids to try to land on a extended toe ankle like that because I worry that people will hurt their ankles, right? Well, if you're doing it correct, we should be able to land in a correct cross stance, this is what a cross stance is and always has been. Then we plant, then we transition and shift into a T-block, right? Good. From here, my favorite part, Pion 5, the stance transition that I talked about for this section of Pion 4 is also the section where I do the spear hand pull out section from Pion 5. So I'm right here in a T-block. And let me face this way first, so you can see what I mean. And what I'm doing is I'm shifting from a front stance, pushing into another front stance, and then rotating into a back stance. Now, if I face forward, I want to do this both directions because I want to harp on this for a second, even though I talked about it a minute ago. The width that I'm going to is sometimes a problem for people. And I'm going to get advanced for a minute, so this is the way that a red belt should do it, but if you're not, if you're like Evan or somebody watching who, you're just doing this form for fun, don't worry too much about the teeny tiny details of a stance. It's good to know where the correct angle of a stance comes from. Just make sure you don't overcorrect and do something off, right? Because a lot of times we tell a little kid to go super wide, too wide for a front stance because they're going too narrow and we're trying to give them a good habit. Or they go too wide, like something like super dramatic, and we tell them go on a straight line just so that they can kind of think about overcorrecting and come to a correct position, right? Well, this move is about the direction that it comes from, right? So what needs to happen is I need to, from this T-block, you see how my right foot is in the middle of this square? What I need to do is turn into a proper shoulder width front stance for the spear hand, and then move into a straight line of the heels, back stance. So I'm going, look, I'm wide this way, I'm on this side of the square for my T-block. And maybe this is a little wide, but for the concept, you get me? I'm in the middle, and on this side, I shift to the middle and this side, because now I'm in a front stance and I'm appropriately width here. I'm not in the middle, this isn't a good front stance. I'm all the way over here. And the danger of that is that people overdo it. They either hardly turn at all and do a spear hand here, and now I'm not in this nice wide front stance. Or the opposite danger is that I step way over here and I'm trying to spear hand this way, but I stepped this way. My power isn't there. And so at red belt, we should have an intimate understanding of what a front stance is. And that is the truest correction for not stepping too wide, right? Because what a front stance is pushing forward with the back leg, pushing forward with the back leg, not pushing at that angle, right? Even if I'm transitioning. So when I do this move from here to here, the goal shouldn't be to twist to the left. I'm turning to the left, but I'm not twisting with my power to the left. I'm just going to end up stepping too wide in a front stance and spearhanding too far to the left. That's not my goal. My goal is to go from straight this way to straight that way. My goal is to go from this T-block, I look, I'm chambered, and this back leg is going to push me straight in that direction. And now I'm in a nice shoulder width apart front stance. If I do it facing this way, my back leg is going to push me forward into a front stance. Now I'm where I need to be. Again, a lot of times people will yank their foot way across over here because they're just trying to pull into a back stance, or they will more likely, let me show you this direction, pull it way back because they're thinking to get on the back leg, which is a good problem, but still a problem. But instead, if we remember that the power is rotational, but I leave the front foot forward, I can shift onto the back leg, leave the front foot forward. Let me put it on this blue line so you can see. Shift across on the blue line, shift across, but leave the front leg forward. And look, even when I do it, I sometimes end up here, too far across. That's acceptable because I'm getting the concept. You want to be heels in line, of course. But the point is, so long as you're doing the function of a back stance and rotating onto the back leg, keeping your knees bent, we're in business. Now, what the hand moves are for this, I started this 1:30, an hour and a half, yeah. What the actual hand moves are for this section is after the T block, I spear hand, pow. In this front stance that we talked about pushing with the back leg, I spear hand, and it's a palm up spear hand. So it's not like the spear hands we do in Pinon 2 and Pinon 3, where I'm doing a pressing block and a spear to the center. It's a guard, like I'm doing an open hand down block, right? And a spear hand forward with the palm up. Those of us who don't know what this move is, suffice it to say, you're reaching under somebody's person, grabbing something from underneath, which is why your hand is shaped in this direction, and then yanking back, right? Which is why you're not at this angle. I suppose in theory, if you were upright, you could still grab something. But it's more efficient to do it from this direction, right? Unless you're trying to strike. Now, I have seen this move done at 45-degree angles or even straight, and I'm not actually even going to explicitly say that's wrong. I'm saying I do it palm up. I think it's more efficient for what we're trying to do. I've seen most people do it that way. That's how I've learned it. So that's what I'm going to put down as official here. Good. 137. Wow. Am I going to spend the whole time doing just the two red forms? Maybe. But I do this front stance, spear hand. As I grab, I actually close the bottom hand and close the top hand, because I'm going to pull into this move, right? Where I'm going into almost an outside block, like basic 3, but high. So not even completely square at the shoulders, but 45 degrees, and then extend it up, right? In a back stance. And the bottom hand just goes into a down block, right? It's chambered for a down block, right? It was open hand, but it closes, and then it does an actual basic 1 down block. It follows that same path across and down, right? So I spear hand, open, grab, basic 1, basic 3, pow! Except a very high outside block, like you see in some of the takeouts, for those of you who know those forms. You have very high shoulder width outside blocks in some of those forms, right? I'm doing pow, grab, yank, pow, down block, outside block, high, a pull-out block. Maybe I'm pulling and yanking high, right? Whatever you want to visualize the move as being, it ends up in this position, right? Now I bring my feet together, I step back into it, and this is interesting. I pick up the left toes so that when I turn and do a double block, I'm in a cross stance. But what do we talk about for a cross stance? The back foot, toes are up. And admittedly, I've never seen anybody do it this way. And for the longest time, I've never done it with the back toes up. It was almost a year ago, I was having a conversation with one of my black belts, and we were talking about what a cross stance was and when to do it. And they asked me, because we were doing this form, is this one back toes up like a cross stance? And I said, I have no idea. And the reason why I said that is because ever since I first started at this school, we've always done this one like this. I've always done this one like this, without the back toes coming up like that. That being said, I think it makes sense to do it as a cross stance in the same way. And the reason why I think it makes sense is because we talked about what a cross stance was. A cross stance is bending for low power. It's making sure that we are chambered for the next move, which in this case is pushing with this leg, pow, into a front stance. And if I keep my legs straight and don't bend the knees for a cross stance and don't pick the heel up, I'm more likely to step down without my head pushing forward into one of these front stances, as opposed to what we were talking about a minute ago, right? I'm here, staying low, pushing forward, all right, into the last move. So when I do this form now, you may notice that I've adapted that, but that's not something that has been taught. It's something that it came out naturally in a conversation between black belts, which is a beautiful thing, I think. It's we're really, really, really getting a deep intimate understanding of what the move is and why. We've always done it one way, but then the conversation came up as, why do we do it that way? Why don't we bend the back toes and pick it up like we do every other cross dance? Should we? Does it make more sense, or does it make more sense to do it the way we've always done it? In my opinion, it makes sense to pick the back toes up because, my favorite word, because now I'm lower and better chambered in position to press forward to a front stance. It does not mean that it is incorrect to pick the back toes up and leave both feet down. And half of the time, I guarantee I forget and just do it that way. When I'm consciously aware and practicing the form, I like to pick the back heel up all the time when I'm doing this stick block and when I'm doing this move in Pilates 5, because it's more true to concept. And I like consistency of the moves too, right? I don't like to do a cross dance this way some of the time and this way other parts of the time. Good, 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 good. So, Pilates 5 from the top. Making sure this time that we marry the concepts of all the mechanics that I talked about, all the twisting that I talked about, marry those concepts with, as we practice, if you're a red belt or a blue belt going to red or a black belt, making sure that we practice visualization, intentionality. The picture in your mind of what's going on, right? Hopefully now that we know what and how the moves are, we can better picture, and that we do the move with the intention of fulfilling that vision, that imaginative scenario, right? Now, Pilates 5, from the top all the way through, limited explanation. 1, look where you're going. Twist from the back leg, full outside block, come straight across punch. Look forward, shift into parallel stance, switch the hands. Now it's forward and on top. Look, keep the weight on the back leg, outside block, punch. Now the hand is back. Look forward, bring the toes together as you step into a parallel stance and shift. Now they're stacked. Push forward with the back leg into a T-block. Back fist, uppercut, right? Now from here, I step forward, push with the back leg into a stick block low. The hands come in and out for the high block, right? I don't just come low to high and get no power. It's pow, pow. For me, the bottom hand just goes straight there, pulls back without the fancy stuff, and pull, push, punch. Good, let me face this one. So from here, I turn, crescent kick, save the body power, horse stance, twisting into a down block. Look, keep the horse stance as I target. Now I can shift, crescent kick, horse stance, land the elbow strike. Think about your target, right? Now, this is a pivot point. Shift into a cross stance and close the bottom hand after the angle. Look, shift into a cast stance, bent knee, 45, 45, front foot is like a front kick, hands are open. From here, I push with the front leg, bring both feet up, land right leg, left leg, drop the heel, front stance into a T-block, back fist uppercut. Now from here, let me face this way. From here, pow, pow, I shift this foot all the way across as I spear hand, pow, into a front stance, grab, pull it all the way back to the middle without yanking the foot back, right? From here, same thing, I shift all the way across, spear hand, grab, pull all the way back without pulling the front foot. My weight shifted from here to here, the foot didn't move back. I come up, pick up the toes, and the toe that's up is gonna switch after I do it, right? The left toe isn't staying up. After I switch, pop, now the right foot's the one that's up. That's what I was talking about. Now the right foot steps out as the left foot is primed to push. Left foot spear, the same way on the other side, palm up, close the hands and grab, and do a power key up as you extend. Into a back stance, I pull it across, I keep this high, 45, straight, down bottom. Good. I changed a lot of directions there. That way you can get a better view from the camera of the way that I was doing the concepts. The form doesn't go that way. I'm adjusting for the best view of each individual area, right? Good, good, good. how long has this class been so far? This class has been an hour and 44 minutes. I had originally intended to do the 3 forms for that we do for red belt in this school: P&on 4, P&on 5, and beside the form that is normally a black belt form, a Tangsudo black belt form, a Karate black form certainly, but that in our school we do for the 3 stripe red, for the first gut red, the last level of red belt that you do before black belt. That form, it's called beside, but now I'm wondering about time, because that's a very long form. And there's a lot of new concepts that would require explanation. And the way that I'm explaining things in this series, let's call it, it's definitely would take another hour at least to get through the side. I got nowhere to be. And I'm kind of into it, so I'll tell you what, I won't be offended if anybody feels like the class is going too long. This is going to exist on YouTube afterwards. So if you feel like, oh, I can't stay for now, I gotta leave, I'll watch it, I'll finish it later, no problem. I'm gonna try to go through all of the side anyway. I just convinced myself it was up in the air, but I'm gonna try to go through it all anyway, because I feel like it. I feel like doing one more. And if you stay for it, awesome, cool. If you can't, no problem, the video is online. But keep in mind, like the same thing I said in the beginning of class, right? The purposes of these are that we stay in practice, stay in shape, stay in form at home outside of these videos. And try to catch mine and Master Jeff's if you can, because it's kind of the only way that we're being able to train in the meantime. But also you have your at-home practice besides this. Like I said, I did my little biking this morning. I did my little workout, my little yoga this morning. Yeah, of course. Use your at-home practice, and if you can, improve in that way, right? So for me, that means trying to get to where I can palm the floor with my hands. Can I do that right now? Almost. Yeah. But find something that you want to improve on. A part of your move, a part of your practice, a series of forms. Learn how to use a staff, learn how to use a sword. There's all kinds of stuff besides this. Learn a language, who cares? As we do, yeah, I get you. As you are training outside of these videos, keep the training up. And especially for the people who are more likely to be watching this video, senior belts or people who are more experienced in martial arts, mostly maybe, because this is about the red belt forms, be wary of senior belt syndrome. I noticed actually in the last video that I did, the one on basic 1 through P&on 3, that every time I would do an outside block that I was explaining, my hand was like here instead of here where it should be. And I was re-watching part of that video to see how I did. And I was just looking at my other hand. It was like here when I would do basic 3 instead of pulled all the way back. And there's video evidence of that forever, but it's fantastic because in this period, now I have the opportunity to condition myself to fix that mistake, let's call it, because it's definitely a mistake if I didn't know I was doing it and I did it, right? I want to be aware. Senior belt syndrome is what I call it, right? Where you know a concept in your head, where you could explain it in detail. Right, where you could teach somebody else how to do something, like basically everybody in this school that is green belt and above, I guarantee could teach somebody, a beginner, how to do a front stance, no problem. They could teach them front leg bend, back leg straight, hips forward, back toe straight, all these things. But then they do their form and they're not doing a front stance. That's because they understand but don't self-correct. Now is the time. It is a perfect time. I'm not saying all day, every day, but set apart some time from the day, aside from just watching videos, to self-correct, to look at how you do a front stance, to think, if I close my eyes and push into a front stance, would I be in the correct shape or would I be off? What is my instinct? What is my natural? What is my go-to? What is my default? Cool. So catch the videos if you can, mine, Master Jeff's, whoever else does one, but in the downtime, right? In the downtime, use this time to improve. And if I could get like a split or something in this 3 weeks or further along the path, that would be great. Cool. Now, Basai. Basai is an interesting form because we use it in the school as a red belt form, but it is a black belt form. It is an old black belt form. It is a karate form. It's from Okinawa is one of the first karate forms that exists. It exists in modern Taekwondo because, just like the Punan forms, which are also karate forms, because it was practiced originally in Namsudo, and it is a carryover. It is not a Korean black belt form. The first Korean black belt form is Koryo, which is the form that we do for our first degree black belt here. We always added Basai to first degree black belt in the past because it was a carryover from the Japanese tradition. And in here, it's a nice little transitionary form, then, I think, for keeping the power of red belt before we get into the big twisty stuff of black belt. And we'll talk more about that in a video that I do some other day about the other black belt forms, maybe the first degree forms, Koryo and 7. Those two definitely can just get their own videos and leave it at that. Basai is a Japanese form, and in that mindset, it's more about the speed and quick, rapid strikes than it is about the huge chambers of a Taekwondo form. A quick aside, in general, because there are several styles of Taekwondo and many, many, many styles of karate that originate from Okinawa and the mainland Japan and other areas, in general, when we talk about power coming from Taekwondo, we're talking about huge twisting moves, right? That's why you see the stances being more 60-40. That's why you see the angle coming more about this rotation. I emphasize that heavily right now, right? We talk about the power pushing from the back leg, very Taekwondo. When you talk about karate, then we're talking more about speed from front projection and the pushing forward than it is about the actual twisting of the body as you push, right? If we're talking about a back stance in karate, it's definitely way more on the back leg than it is 60-40. And it's definitely they pull out, like you've seen some people do, instead of twisting. That's less focused on the big twist, more focused on the internal twist. If you're worried about what that means, don't. What I'm saying in summary is that when we do big Taekwondo forms, like the Taekwondo black belt forms, the emphasis is going to be on huge twisting power moves. And right now, imagine that Basai and everything in Basai as a style is done like a ninja, crouching, fast, small body twist, precise. This is important for any form that's a black belt form because they all have their own character and their own philosophy. When I say character, I mean literally. Either a Japanese kanji or a Korean hangul, they all mean something. Koryo, for example, the first Taekwondo black belt form, is the character for the Koryo dynasty, one of the historical dynasties of Korea. And the form itself emulates that in its philosophy in terms of shape and movement, and in terms of how it really emphasizes moves that separate the style of Taekwondo away from its original Okinawan karate roots. The form is designed to emphasize what is historically Korean and not what is historically Japanese. And it's named after the most famous and prosperous dynasty in Korea. And the country Korea is named after this Koryo dynasty, by the way, right? History lesson for you, you're welcome. The form is super, super, super Taekwondo, and it's meant to be. It's meant to be Korean, right? Basai it has a lot of translations. The viper, the cobra, fast, escaping a castle. You see all these things. It's meant to be stealth. It's meant to be fast. There's not a single word translation for it that I know of, although maybe I just don't remember. But every single form has its own character and style. That's my point. So that's why I went on that long tangent aside. Now, into the actual movements of the form. It starts with a supported back fist from a parallel stance. So the ready position is not the regular ready position that we do for all the other forms. Many of the black belt forms, not all, have their own chumbis. Traditionally, when we do a chumbi, we go 1 with the left foot, 2, bring the hands up on our toes, and 3, hands are at our hips, 1 fist distance apart, and I'm more to the toes, and my heels are off the ground, right? That's the ready position for all of the Pinons, basic 1, 2, and 3. Many of the black belt forms too. This is my setup. From here, I start the form. Basai, Koryo, a few of the others have their own. So in Basai, instead of 1 down in double fist, you 1, but don't step down across, just step straight down again. Bring the hands together, left hand on the bottom, make a fist with the right hand, and cup it with the left hand as you come down. Instead of fist, 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 cup. And there's a lot of symbology here, right, about what the actual position means. And this is true for a lot of things in martial arts. And it's super simple. It's a taiju. It's a yin yang, right? A yin yang, I should say, if I'm pronouncing it correctly. Where you have the aggressive, right? The fighting, the fists, the power. You have the passive, the peace, the controlling, hand control, right? And we're emulating that position in the ready position. As we're doing the first black belt form, as we're doing the karate black belt form, the Tansudo black belt form, where our Chu-Mi represents this yin yang. Good. Right hand fist, left hand on top. And this is how we set up for the first move. It looks like this. I chamber to the left with both hands. I lean into the move. And then I step left foot. I step at 45 degrees. Right foot, also 45 degrees. And left foot comes behind into a cross stance, toes up, heel up. And I go into a supported back fist. A back fist is where you're, like the name implies, striking with the back of the fist right to the center line. If I stand facing forward, a back fist goes pow to the nose. It's different than basic 3, which does an outside block this way. A back fist goes right down the middle line, pow to the nose like so. We talked about this when we talked about Pinon 3, and the difference is that people do when doing that form, outside block versus pow, back fist, pow, back fist to the nose. A back fist goes to the nose, and the support here from a supported back fist is that this open hand on the yin yang, right, is pushing. So it doesn't release back fist and clap. What it does is it provides extra power and leverage. From here, I chamber, bend, right, just like Pinon 4, in and extend, in, back, and slide down the knuckles into a push, pam, like so, right? Good. So as I do the first move of the side, I chamber, go to the left, lean, left, right, into, as I go into this cross stance, I go forward into the back fist to the nose, left, right, kia, supported. It has power, it has control from the core, it has leverage, all of that. And it's stepping into a cross stance, which, as we know, as I mentioned repeatedly, because Lord knows I talk a lot, is a ready position for a new stance. I brought up Basai a minute ago, not a minute ago, but some time ago when I was talking about how the purpose of the cross stance is to chamber for the next move. And in this case, that's no different. This front leg is going to push me into a front stance the opposite direction, right? So right now, my right foot is forward, my left foot is back in this cross stance. And this left leg is hanging out back here. And this is going to be the one that then comes into a front stance. But I don't just put it out and rotate. That's a waste of power. I'm not even in a good angle right now for a front stance. Instead, I make sure that this chamber leg does its job of pushing me forward into a front stance. What the hands are doing is a double outside block. So I push basic 3 with a full 2-hand chamber into a front stance, and another one, basic 3. Outside block, right, is what it is. Good. The first one happens integrated with the body move. The second one is not just stationary, it has body twist. Every move in Taekwondo, including double moves, I should say, has its own source of power. So back when I was doing Pinon 5, I didn't just go pow, power for this move, power for this move, and then no body power for the punch. What for, right? No. Instead, I get pow, a chamber, that small, you see that little twist that I'm doing with my core, with the chunk of my body? That's a whole new chamber for this second punch. When I'm doing horsehand punches, I don't go powerful twist and then a weak, lazy punch. I shouldn't. I should go powerful twist for this punch, powerful twist for this punch. If we do double punches, it's fast, but twist, twist. They both get a trunk twist. It doesn't have to be gigantic. It can be small. But what it's doing is it's giving power for the strike beyond just the strength of my arms. It's now torso and trunk power. It's very easy to do on big moves like punches or big outside blocks. It's sometimes trickier to do on a move like a front stance reverse outside block, like we're doing in Basai right here, where I'm going, this one's very powerful, and if I'm not careful, this one isn't. Because it's kind of hard to, after I already push it this way, somehow get enough counter rotation to get power for the second hand. Pow, body power here. Pow, body power here. It helps to really cross the hands over, right? So this hand is here for the first outside block, and I'm gonna do the next outside block here, right? So as I reach under across, like I'm unbuckling the seatbelt, this hand reaches forward and they yank together. And as they yank, I inhale and reach further with the seatbelt, see? And I reset back into this position. What that extra reach does is it's a chamber, it's a inhale before the exhale and snap into place. Good. So, supported back fist, look, body power, body power. Now, what I'm gonna do is chamber for the next move. We talked about what a front stance is. It's a push. That is so key for this entire section. Let me show you what the section is facing this way, right? What the section is one, a chamber, 1, 2, and a cross stance. I push with this leg for outside block, outside block. Then I have to push with this leg for an inside block, outside block, right? Let me get further away so you can see that. I feel like I transitioned too close. I chamber, 1, 2, I push, outside block, and then this leg is gonna move. This leg, the bent one, is gonna push as I chamber into a front stance here for an inside block, outside block, right? As it does so, I need to make sure that I don't just fall into the trap, which is something a lot of red belts do when learning Basai for the first time, of not pushing into the front stance. I don't like to see this. What happens is people will do the form, and let me show you the exact same way. Except let me show you what I don't like to see. Where people will go 1, 2, 3. They'll step the foot out and twist. They'll step the foot across and twist. And the foot will maybe be too wide or too narrow, sure. But even more than that, they didn't push forward into the front stance. They tried to twist as if we're doing a back stance, but they twisted very wide onto a big, wide front stance. It's inefficient. It's not the best use of our power. It is sacrificing power for something that you think is faster, or maybe just a lack of understanding of the move. It's okay. It's okay. But now that we understand how to do it, it's key to make sure that a front stance is a front stance is a front stance is a front stance. Yeah? And as I'm here doing the first moves of Basai, 1, 2, 3, I actively push from this back leg into the outside block, and as I transition this foot across, it's not just turning and twisting, it's turning and pushing. This back leg does the job of projecting my torso. From here, on this side of the line, it pushes my upper body to this side of the line. I'm going forward with power, is what a front stance is. Good. So outside block, chamber, inside block, outside block. And that inside block is the huge one. When I do an inside block, we mentioned, the hand is like I'm putting the knuckles or the back of my fingers against my ear, against my cheek, and then twisting in, and not just here, but like Pinon 4, crossing, right? Crossing the face. The same thing is true in the side. Pow, inside block, punch, outside block, inside block crosses the center line, outside block crosses. So if I start the form facing away from you, so you can, facing towards you, so you can see what I mean, I start, 1, 2, 3, supported back face, right to the nose. We're gonna do the next 2 moves facing away. Do the outside block. I push into a front stance, outside block. Now look at these. I chamber, look at how my hand is reaching towards you. Because what I need to do, and we talked about this for basic 1 back in the first video, is I need to chamber here. And to do that, I can't do so from over here. I need to reach in the direction that I'm going to chamber from. This hand back here is by my ear. And I pull in, pow, into a front stance by pushing with the back leg, and I cross my face to block and protect my face. As I do an outside block, I cross my face and end in the same place. See? Inside block, outside block. Inside block, outside block. They look almost the same, except I'm just using the same hand to go into the same side, in the same direction. It's like I'm going wave. It's like I'm doing that thing Master Jeff always loves to do, the 1, 2, 3 punch. 1, 2, 3 punch. I'm going inside block, right? the same direction, pow, pow. That's why they're ending across my face on this side, both of them, even though it's left hand, right hand, pow. Good. From here, somebody is grabbing my wrist, and I break the guard by swiping it against my knee. So hypothetically, I'm doing an outside block here. Somebody grabs my hand, and I yank down and pick my knee up and use my own leg to dislodge their grip from my hand. This is somebody else's hand, for example. They're holding onto me, and I yank down, pull the knee up, and chamber. From here, I yank down, pull the knee up, chamber. Then do a front stance inside block, outside block, and split the difference, just like P on 4, into a horse stance ready. Good. Let's fly through just that much. So, starting from the side, I'm starting this way, so you can see, chamber to the left, lean, left, right, cross stance, supported back fist. Push with the right leg, step with this left leg from behind into an outside block, elevation. Now chamber to the other side as you push with the back leg into a front stance, inside block, outside block. Now somebody's grabbing me, and I break the grip, turn 90 degrees to the right, inside block, outside block, split the difference, just like P on 4, horse stance ready. Good. Now, from this horse stance ready, there's a little stance shifting right here. My horse stance is wide, my knees are over the toes, my hands are in this ready position, not all the way back, but underneath, and I come forward into a middle block. I like to do my middle blocks all the way to here. From here, I'm gonna do punch, outside block with both hands, and it's gonna be a stance shift. So I do a middle punch to the solar plexus in a horse stance, and then the same hand, just like P on 3, punch block, right? There's a punch, block. But I change stances as I do so. So I punch, pow, and then push with this leg into the front stance. It's a Basai stance, they call it, which just means a front stance with off-angle toes. The way we usually do it in this school is that we angle this foot kind of 45 degrees, and this foot stays completely straight like a horse stance, right? I've seen other schools, some other tongue pseudo books, where you turn them both into a 45-degree front stance. The concept is the same. In our school, we keep this foot here. The concept is the same though, and the concept is that it's still a front stance. And so for it to be still a front stance, you need to push from this back leg. I'm here in the middle block, punch in the horse stance, push this back foot into a front stance. I don't just twist in the same place because it's not functionally a front stance. I push from the back leg just like any other front stance would, right? And as I do so, my body weight shifts because it has to, because it pushed over here. And I do the outside block as I get pushed. I come back to the horse stance as I middle punch this way. Now this leg is going to be the one to push as I outside block. And you do it this way, or in our school, we keep the toes facing forward. The outside block crosses the face completely. Good. I skip for bringing the feet together. Back stance, open hand, middle block. Back stance, open hand, middle block. I do 3 of them. We know this already. I'm not going to harp on that move. And then I close this front hand because I'm grabbing something. I step back and do a back stance, open hand, high block, but the back hand is closed. See? Make sure the high block is chopping, not doing a high five twisted move, but chopping at a good angle. And I'm here. Step up, right foot behind the left into a cross stance. And good question. Yes, like this. I've seen a lot of people just step this way, and that's the way that it's pretty much almost always done in the school. Half the time I do it that way too. I have seen karate videos where they step into a cross stance like this. This is another example of you are not wrong in the school if you step your feet together like this for Basai. That is the way it's always been done. That's fine. If you're looking for consistency in your cross stances, by all means. But it's almost like this an exception in the black belt forms, whereas in the color belt forms, we enforce things a certain way. No, except for P1 5, I guess. I'm here, back stance, open hand, high block, cross stance. This doesn't feel right. It's done here. This is how it's been done. This is how I do it. I can't speak for the exception rule. This is Japanese. But if you want to, a cross stance is a cross stance. This is, I'm going to look this up. Maybe this isn't a cross stance. No say. Anyway, from here, I come together, feet together, and I bring this back leg around, chamber it by pointing the knee completely away, side kick, middle block the other direction. Just from the beginning to that point, right? Because this is a long, tricky form. The thing about Basai is that even back when I was, what was I, like a blue belt or like a purple belt or something? That's when I was learning Basai for the first time. And I remember learning it and forgetting it, and learning it a second time and forgetting it completely, and having to, from the very, very, very beginning, learn this form all over again 3 times. And this is the person who learned Koryo once and had it forever, who learned 7 once and had it forever, who learned Gungan once and had it forever. Forms aren't particularly hard for me because I apply myself. But this form is understandably a tricky one. I learned it, forgot it, learned it, forgot it, learned it, forgot it. It's the same for me in many of the takeos, right? But so keep in mind, I bring that up to say that I know that we've only done like a third of the form. It is a long, complicated form. If you're not getting it so far in terms of being able to do it on your own count, relax. If you already know the form, you're just here for the details, beautiful, great. But no worries about all the technical mumbo jumbo minutia in terms of mixing it all together in the form on your own count. It's a lot. This is a detailed, technique-heavy explanation of this form, and this is a very long, complicated form for your first time doing a form like this. It's like twice as long almost as any of the red belt forms. So no worries. It's a whole thing. It's a whole bag of beans and the rice. Yeah. So from the beginning, I'm in this chubi, right hand face, left hand on top, chamber to the left, lean, left, right, cross stand, supported back fist, kia. I use this front leg to push into a front stance, outside block, outside block. Then I chamber with the left hand and push. This push helps this inside block and outside block. Now somebody's grabbing this hand and I break the grip, chamber with the same hand that breaks the grip, the right hand. Breaks the grip and continues in this circle. It's making a circle. It pulls back, inside block, outside block, front stance right. From here, I open middle block, punch, guard with that front stance pushing. Shift the feet together. So I'm doing a right hand open middle block first. Right, left, right. Grab with the front hand, step back into a back stance open hand headlock. Some people do this slowly. Bring the feet together, one behind the other, a la cross stance. Hands open. Both of my palms are facing forward. The angle doesn't have to be straight. It's almost a crisscross like an X, but with the palms. From here, the leg that's behind, chambers, side kicks, backs and from the head middle blocks, and does a step forward, one more, back stance open hand. So that's the first section of Basai, right? From there, let's look at what's new. From here, this is where we ended after the whole target, side kick, middle block, middle block. From here, you step back into a parallel stance, feet together, hands to the side. I step back into a parallel stance, hands to the side. And you're imagining somebody's grabbing you like they're choking you like that. What we're gonna do is a different kind of choke that we sometimes do in class, an escape where you bring the arms together, 1, pow, go straight up, pow, straight up, and 2, straight up and out, pow, across like so, right? So 1, pow, 2, pow, extend and out to the side. Good, good, good. What's important about this, and I've heard a lot of people say, this technique doesn't work. On the one hand, it is not the most powerful or effective way to escape from a headlock. Sure, I'll give you that. Picking the hands up like we do sometimes and turning with the body like that is usually more efficient, especially if you're a smaller person. If the other person has bigger, stronger hands and you're using the whole leverage of your armpit and shoulder to break the grip of their fingers, right? Even a smaller kid has better leverage with the whole body. That doesn't mean that this doesn't work or isn't effective though. What it usually means is that somebody's not doing it the way the technique is designed to work. Leverage is key here. What happens is somebody grabs the throat and people try to pick up like this with the hands. Look at how my elbows are flared out to the side right now. You try to pick up like this, somebody breaking off, and they don't have the leverage from the outside shoulder muscles to flare somebody when they're leaning down on top of you like this, doing a chokehold. You can't come from underneath with the elbows wide and expect to overpower somebody from underneath with the small side shoulder muscles. It's not going to happen. But that's not the way the move is designed. You come fists and elbows together, straight up like that, up the middle. If you can, keeping the elbows touching as you go through. You go once to break the grip, up, and a second time, up and out, right? So the idea isn't even that I'm doing it once, pow, I'm breaking the grip. The idea is I go pow, pow, break the grip. And I break the grip, not with my hands, not with my forearms. I'm basically breaking the grip with my elbows. I plunge the hands deep through as if I'm double punching through, right? They're holding neck like that. And as they do, I stick my hands through the opening of the arms and I keep the elbows close. That way I go all the way up to my elbows are what pushes against the chokehold, right? So it is not using the hands and the upper forearms to push somebody off the chokehold. It's not the most efficient way to do this. And this is, people are always like, oh, they're trying and they're struggling and they're coming from on top and they're swinging the arms like this against a chokehold and you don't have the leverage. Act like you're taking a spear. You do it with your hands closed, but act like you're taking a spear and driving it through with your elbows close until you're as deep past the guard as you can. And from there, with your elbows, and that is such a more powerful point of leverage. You spread it out, pow, and now you can break the guard, especially if you're not expecting it. That is the way the technique goes. Again, maybe not the most efficient way to break a headlock, but that doesn't mean it doesn't work. It usually means that maybe we're doing something wrong and we don't know how the move goes, which is fine. Now we know. Elbows together, break the grip, keeping the elbows together, and then don't go break and directly out to the side. Again, defeats the purpose. Break the grip, then again, in, out with the elbows, and end up in this wide position where you have the forearms 45 degrees and the upper arms straight. Good, 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 good. So, middle block, I step back. It's like a chumi position with the feet parallel. Come in, break the grip, then I chamber for a double inside block. Now an inside block, as you know, is the hand goes all the way back like this, to where the back of the hand is against the cheek, against the ear. Now, I don't know about you, my shoulders don't allow me to go all the way back with both arms at the same time. So I go as far back as I can. But the idea is I'm getting as much chamber as I could. If I had the rotation in my shoulders, I'd yeah, perfect, no problem. The video will be there. And see you later. Yeah, perfect, perfect, perfect. I'll see you guys later. So the elbows, right? Just pull it back as far as you can. Keep the hands as close to the face as you can. And from there, step forward with the right foot and do a double rib smash is what we call it, which is an inside block, but it's lower to the body, right? An inside block is just blocking a punch that comes across your face. And a rib smash is an inside block that comes lower, pow, and strike somebody on the ribs here. We're doing a double rib smash, right? So you chamber, step forward, pow, and come across. Now, make sure that you don't just keep your arms straight, and get no power. But instead, it's bend, let the elbow come, let the hand extend. Pow, like you're doing a hammer fist. Pow, pow, at this angle. Pow, 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 bend, extend. Pow, bend, extend. Good, 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 good. So, from here, to this point in the side, I break the grip, chamber, rib smash. I do another, elbows together, bring the feet in, break the grip. This isn't that form. From here, I do, after the first rib smash, pow, I step forward and do a front stance punch. Good. It's kind of a jumping front stance punch, but actually, I can't help myself. I always get too tangential whenever we talk about a move. It would seem like this is one of the simplest and most obvious moves of the form, right? I'm going from right foot forward, rib smash, and all I'm doing is stepping, into a front stance punch. And that seems so obvious. It seems like I'm just doing a front stance punch like I did from basic one. It's easy. Move on to the harder forms, Master John. Don't worry about it. But there's something going on here that I'm not the biggest fan of. And it's the huge excessive weight, the huge excessive chamber, and the timing on the landing, right? The way that I always see this move done is like this. With a huge weight, a huge step, a huge kind of balancing teeter-totter over the front foot, where you treat the front leg like a pendulum and drop across and stomp down into that front foot. I don't like to do it that way. I think it robs the move of the authenticity of a front stance, which is pushing from the back leg. So what I like to do is after this rib smash, I like to not jump into this and fall into the next front stance, which is not a front stance, right? I don't like to go from here, pow, pow. I'm not saying that everybody does that. I'm saying that people who are less inclined to do a fundamental front stance might fall into this trap. Instead, from this wrist smash, quickly step into the left foot chamber and step forward. And it doesn't need to be a huge, gigantic lunging jump. If it is, it's a quick lunging jump into the chamber that I can push into the front stance from the back leg, right? I'm maintaining the integrity of a front stance middle punch. Exactly like our hypothetical scenario. Oh, it's just like basic one. Yes, it is. It is a basic one front stance middle punch with power projection from the back leg. And so we can't neglect that just because it's Basai and doing a fancy jump. And now I get to go and not do a good front stance in this black belt form, 3-shot red belt form, just because it's Basai. No, a front stance is a front stance is a front stance is a front stance. That should be the title of this video. I am pow, here on the wrist smash, a chamber extend. Good, 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 good. Now, we did this section in P-Note 5 already. What happens next is almost exactly the same. From here, I turn, crescent kick, land in the horse stance, down block, target, just like P-Note 5, so I'm not going to go all over that again. I turn, crescent kick, elbow strike, that's all just like P-Note 5. I'm not going to go all over that again. Instead, we'll talk about what comes immediately after. I end just like P-Note 5, let me face this way. In the elbow strike, in a horse stance. And from here, and especially if you do it like me, and you angle your elbow strikes upward to the jaw, you're even more prepared for the next movement, which is punch, 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 3 punches down. But this is tricky. People always get confused on the chambers. They even get confused when I teach them in real life, person to person. And so I'm gonna just try to verbalize and explain this as simply as possible. Remember that a punch that we do in this form is this. One hand is in front, the other hand is back. One hand pulls as the other hand punches. This hand pulls, so the other hand punches, right? The only thing is that we're pulling for the purpose of doing an elbow strike to project the shoulder forward, right? But if I'm punching downward, I'm still gonna pull, pow, but if I try to pull back like this, I'm leaning forward as I elbow upward. That's not something that we do, but that's not the way this form happens. Now, I still want to every single punch pull, but I'm going to pull into a chamber position across my face. And then, instead of going straight into a punch with the next hand, this isn't a punch. A punch, by definition, has the elbow behind it. So I pick this elbow up, do the next punch, and this one's ready to pull. And it pulls to here. Now I pick this elbow up so I have a good angle for a downward punch, and this hand pulls to here. Now if I do a bunch of those punches over and over and over again, what it looks like, chamber, is pull, punch, and this hand comes to the cross. And then the up hand, the chambered hand, pulls, and this hand stays where it is. Punch. This hand comes up, punch, up, punch, punch, right? Okay. And then what it actually is in sequence of the form, there's one open and one close. So this hand is an open hand target for the elbow strike. The hand stays open as it pulls. It stays open as I punch, just for the first one. Then it closes, chamber, punch, chamber, punch for the next 2 punches. All together, it's 1 with the hand open, 2 with the hand closed, 3 with the hand closed. Good. 3 punches. On the crescent kick, elbow strike, 1, close, 2, 3, and now front stance is a front stance is a front stance is a front stance. I do not just turn in place to get you a good front stance here. What is the purpose of a front stance if I do that? Instead, from here, I push with this leg, this left leg, into a shoulder width, front stance, hands at the hip. If I don't, then I robbed the move, the integrity of what a front stance is, right? So I push with that back leg here. Awesome. Now from here, I don't just punch without any body power. I still get a little twist if I can. But what I'm doing is, I'm doing a double punch. A regular punch to the nose, a high punch, and an uppercut, pow, to the solar plexus. A lot of times when we teach this form to somebody for the first time, we tell them high and low. And then they punch really high and really low, and that's fine if they're like a kid or something. But in my opinion, this form is a black belt form. It's the first black belt form in many schools. It's the highest form before black belt form in our school, right? And in that regard, at this level, doing this form, if you're ready and testing for it, you should know what a high punch is, and you should know what a middle punch is, and we should aim for those heights. What the correct height is, pow, is this. To the philtrum, right beneath the nose, above the upper lip, and to the solar plexus. They're on the center middle line. The shoulders are square. They're not super high and super low. They're not like Dragon Ball or whatever. They're right there, pow, where we need to punch, right? Good. So the angle should be precise. Perfect, 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 perfect. So from there, I push, the left leg is pushing, the right hand is on top, and then I come right back to the left side into a parallel stance, bring the hands over. So they're already here in the chamber position with this one forward, and do the same thing on the other side. Now we talked about what an inside crescent is. It's the quad extension flexion, where the big hamstring, pow, pow, is responsible for the knee bending into the kick, not the hip flexor moving my leg sideways, right? That's true for this whole section of moves. So I'm doing the double punch, pow. I step back, bring my hands around. My crescent kick comes, pow, up and in. And now just like P1-4, I don't kick, fall, and punch out of balance or out of control. I bring it around, I kick, control, land, double punch, philtrum, solar plexus, and a good front stance with the stance. I step back to the same side, flip the hands over, crescent kick with the other leg now, but I control the balance and now punch back like the first side, right to the area, and I land with the stance. Good, we're almost done, almost done. The last thing is actually the same as the first move. We're actually done with all new movements, right? Except in the beginning, what we did was we did a horse stance middle punch, and then we pushed into a front stance for that outside block. Horse stance middle punch, push into a front stance for that outside block, right? Well, what we're doing here is just the pushing front stance outside block, pushing front stance outside block. You don't have to actually pick up the legs and switch. But you do push front stance outside block both times, right? So from here, pop, facing this direction, I'll show you first. I bring the leg over, but it's not just a turn, right? I'm stepping into a front stance. So a front stance is a front stance is a front stance is a front stance. The right leg is going to be responsible for pushing me over here, and the left leg pushing me back over here, right? Let me start facing this way so you can see what the stance looks like. I turn, push into this front stance, go square, push into this front stance. I skip together, the left foot comes to the right, and do a, keep the weight on the back leg, back stance with my middle block, bring it back, turn to the right, back stance, open to middle block, bring them together, back stance, open to middle block, forward. As I do any of these skips, right, it's super, 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 super important that I don't fall into the trap of step forward onto a back stance, step forward onto a back stance. No, that I keep the weight on the back leg, pow, keep the weight on the back leg, pow, keep the weight on the back leg, pow. We're done with the form. Good. I'll go through one more time, looking at the last little bits, but more so for the continuity of the form. I'm going to try not to change directions as much as I can, because I know that can be confusing for people who want to follow along. But really, this isn't about following along to learn the form. If you're trying to learn the form, you should be learning from a quicker video. That doesn't mean you can't follow along, but if you're trying to learn the form, you should be learning from something quicker that's less detailed of an explanation, right? So that you can just kind of get the shape. But now that you're here, maybe you already know the form. Maybe you're here because why not? You want to look at the details and fundamentals, and this form is far away. Great. This last time, if you kind of know the form, it'll be a chance to try to go through a little faster, but while trying to integrate as much of these concepts as possible, right? Because I'll still talk as we do the form for the last time. Good. We have these videos of the forms by themselves on the same YouTube channel, right? So if you want to just look at the side by itself and copy that, perfect. Learn the form, get the form, then come back to this video and think, okay, now that I know the form, what can I train? How can I do all these little modifications, right? That's what this one's for. For somebody who knows the form, once you got the form, now you're fine. Even better for people who have known this form for a long time, because it'll be a little easier to integrate without kind of losing your place in the form. Although now you have to fix long-term habits. You'll see. So, aside, without moving around as much, I'll still talk. Do I want to start facing this way? Yeah, let's do it. So, I'll face back. Hopefully you'll get as much angle as possible so that you can kind of see things. Just keep in mind that I'm facing 45 degrees to begin the form. And so if you see me facing straight or to a corner, keep that in mind. I start to the left, lean and go left, right, left into a cross stance supported backwards. Push into a front stance, 180 degrees, outside block, outside block. I chamber and turn completely 180 the other way, inside block, outside block. Break the grip, 90-degree turn, inside block, outside block. We should push to that back leg, right? Again, we don't want to come up high and down if we can help it. We want to stay low, push forward, inside, outside block, shift to that horse stance. Open middle block, horse stance punch, pushing front stance, outside block, horse stance punch, pushing front stance, outside block. Skip the left foot over for a right hand back stance, open hand middle block, keep the weight on the back leg, right? Another one, keep the weight on the back leg. Another one, keep the weight on the back leg, grab with the front hand. Stepping back into a back stance, open hand high block. Keep the angle there correct. This hand all the way back and it is closed. Now, step the right foot behind the left, cross hands or whatever you're trying to do. Hands together. Bring the right foot around full proper chamber for a side kick. Land 180 degrees with the left back stance in the middle block. It's very nice, just like pin on forward, to land in a very back stance. So make sure the next one stays weight on the back leg so they look the same. Step back into a parallel stance. Both hands up, elbows together. Both hands up, elbow and out. Chamber for the rib smash. Back the knuckles to the ears if you can. Right foot forward into a front stance, right? Now I did this break and I stood up tall, right? Because I'm doing a rib smash. Right? I can bend as I chamber for the inside block and push forward for the rib smash. Step forward into the punch. Notice how I did a small step, so I didn't come up down for the stepping forward punch, but how I kind of stayed low and pushed with the back leg for the stepping forward punch. Good. Now, just like pin on 5, I turn, spear hand, grab, pull out. This whole section is right from pin on 5, right? I bring the feet together, do that crescent kick, land in a horse stance with the proper chamber, target with the proper chamber. I can adjust now. Crescent kick, target, elbow, target. Now the section that we talked about, where I chamber, punch, those hands now, chamber, punch, push with the back leg into a front stance, hands to the hip. From here, find your chamber for the double punch, high punch, nose punch, uppercut. Bring it right back to where it came from and shift. Left leg kick, crescent kick, push with the right leg into the double punch. Bring both hands back to the right hand side, still in a parallel stance. Switch one more time. Right leg kick, push into the front stance from here. Move the back leg, but push with the front stance leg into it, just outside block. Push other side, outside block. Skip, stay on the back leg, middle block. Stay on the back leg, middle block. Stay on the back leg, middle block. And good, 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 good. I apologize for making these videos as long as I do. I understand that I'm long-winded, but also kind of the purpose of this is that, like I said, I recognize that we all maybe have a lot of time. And so in our home practice, we're either riding the unicycle up the hill, right? Or we're stop pedaling and you don't just get to stay sitting on the hill on your unicycle. There's one wheel. You're going to start rolling backwards down the hill. So we need to keep moving forward. You don't want to try to maintain and stay where you are. There's no reason why we can't get even better with our home practice, right? The whole purpose of training in a class is that you come to class, the teacher gives you something new and difficult, all this extra excess information, and you go home and practice it, and you come back and get something new, right? So if you need to come back to this video a few times and skip around so that you only get to the form that you want to work on, that's fine, whatever, right? Perfect. But then use that to work on these forms. If you're somebody who needs to work on your Basai, great. We just had a deep dive into the teeny tiny details of Basai. It was a long video, but then what you do is you take this video and look, don't even watch the whole thing. You're going to work on a part of Basai that has you confused. Watch that section, pause, go practice this section over and over again. You got it, come back, find something else that you want to work on. Maybe if you're more experienced, you've been doing the form for a long time, just go through the whole thing and follow along with me, fine. But the purpose is, it is a deep dive. By design, I'm giving too much information for anybody to absorb in one sitting, right? Because I'm trying to give a tool for people to have to practice with over time. It was the same with, look, a 2-hour video for the white belt form all the way to blue, and then look, almost 3-hour video, Lord help me, on just 3 forms, the red belt forms, right? So these are long forms, complicated forms, skip around as you need to, practice what you're trying to practice, but then take the information and correct yourself as you do so. I don't have my eyes to watch, but I've given you the tools that way you can watch yourself, right? That's the goal. Tune in for the other videos. Look, I'm not going to make another one on the same concept. The next one I do is going to be much simpler. It'll definitely be on the kicks. How do you do a front kick, roundhouse side kick? Everybody can follow along that. And we'll actually have ways of practicing the kicks, different things like that. You guys can kick along with me. It'll be different, not so information heavy, but not so information heavy. But a video like this is information heavy so that it is a resource for your home practice, for your self-improvement, et cetera, et cetera. I'm out of breath. Thank you everyone for watching. Good job for anybody who made it through the whole thing. Yeah, maybe what I'll do when this video gets posted is I'll go through and I'll timestamp on the bottom. I know how to do that in the comments. A lot of the major form areas. That way, whoever wants to can skip around as they need to. So I recognize that it's a long video. It's a lot. Nobody wants to sit down for 3 hours and just do the red belt forms. And if you do, good job, because you're on track to be a red belt or black belt. But focused practice is fine. Pick one of the forms. Do just that one for that week. We got the time. Use the time. Improve it. Fix your front stances, right? I went through the red belt forms, but Lord help us, we definitely talked about a back stance 1.5 million times and a front stance 1.5 million times as well. So maybe you want to not even worry about the forms that we learned in the video and say that concept of a front stance, that concept of a back stance, how can you integrate that into the forms you already know? Beautiful. Take that and practice it and use my explanations for front stances and back stances here to help you with whatever else you're trying to do. Cool. Cool, 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 cool. Gracias a Dios. Thank you for watching. Thank you for indulging me. Good job, everybody. Giddy up. And I will sign off and end the stream right about now. Thank you, thank you. Good job.